had an early head start, but it looks like Cult 1. We'll do Cult, and it's shorter anyway, so this will be a good taste of the channel anyway.
It goes without saying,
Thanks to the Prime
cults are
Smooth.
infamous for a very good reason. They are known to indoctrinate people, manipulate them,
Mm-hmm.
and use them as a collective for the goals of an individual cult leader or a harmful belief system. In many cases, they target individuals that are very
Thanks to the 5 gift subs,
vulnerable because
Gaming
they're
Legacy.
generally more
We
likely
sub
to
Nuke
look
and
for
Ghostly.
leadership. Desperate people tend to look for desperate answers and tend to not use their better judgment. Take, for instance, the story of the miracle mineral supplement that claimed to cure just about anything.
Hey,
from
I remember
Alzheimer's to
that.
Autism. And as it would turn out, not only did it not cure any disease, did not help any disease, but also contained bleach. Cults
Yeah.
thrive when followers of an individual collective prescribe themselves to blind misinformation.
Oh, here, hold on.
With all
Sorry.
of that being said, today
you
we're
go.
going to dive back into retracing the digital footsteps of one such cult. This is the story of the now defunct Reddit cult of Cantlemoism.
I've been on Reddit since day one, going from Dig to Reddit, and I've never heard of
My encounter with this bizarre
Cantlemoism.
topic first
What
started
the
when I was looking
fuck?
for more internet mysteries to do videos on, and I was on another popular subreddit called the Reddit Bureau of Investigation, and I found a post that read the following:
Thanks to
super
Prime
unusual
Soul.
subreddit where every
Give
post
sub
is
Roberto.
gilded an absurd amount of times. Here is ISS Gold, the subreddit in question. I'm pretty positive they're all bots, but why circle jerk thousands of dollars into gilding onto these posts for no reason at all? There has to be
So
some
they're a
reason
Reddit
why.
gold
At the time I had
cult?
first checked out this
That's
subreddit,
cute.
it was still up, but as of now has been made private. In a nutshell, there were
Thanks
countless
to Tier
posts
1
in this
Elite.
tiny subreddit that contained a vast amount of Reddit gold and silver. At first, it appeared like some sort of test subreddit, something very similar to the YouTube channel WebDriver Torso. While I couldn't
Thanks
find
to
any
some
proof this was a test
Crabio and
subreddit,
Yeet
what I did
Yang.
find out from a
Soulless.
comment was what led me to this topic. A user had commented that this could have a possible connection to r/Cantlemoism, which dropped me right into one of the most interesting
I
stories
like the name.
I've ever come across on Reddit. Trying to access
Sounds like some old Middle Earth shit.
r/Cantlemoism, you'll notice that the entire community has been banned. What's interesting here is that Reddit actually took notice of this community and banned it altogether. Keep in
These are
mind
five
there's
new
an
subs. Collage?
r/Scientology subreddit
Or
that is
collagen,
wide
excuse
open.
me.
So what was
Thank
so
you,
bad
collagen.
about this one that Reddit had to take action? I will note the reason for this subreddit being banned is listed as for being unmoderated, but I highly doubt that, as you'll soon learn more details. If you trace this entire situation back, this all starts with a Reddit user by the name of Chris CGC, whose real name is Chris Cantlemo, who became notorious
Hey!
on Reddit for giving away upwards of $70,000
Goddamn,
in
thank you,
Reddit
Tier 1
badges,
Craig and the
which was
5 gift subs
calculated
again,
by his own
Phantom.
mods
Thank you,
on
Phantom.
his own subreddit. If you look into this guy's background, you'll learn that he owns a medical company called GL Sciences, as well as a few other companies in the past.
Very
for which he
successful
made quite a
Redditor.
bit of money. Just to make sure,
He
if
must
you're
use
unfamiliar with Reddit
r/finance.
badges, they're used as gifts from one Reddit user to another and are displayed on posts. They are usually given out as a good job award for being particularly funny or helpful. Reddit Silver is the cheapest Reddit badge you can put on a post. The next tier
Embarrassing.
is Reddit Gold,
It's
which gives
garbage.
you 1 week of Reddit Premium.
Yeah.
Lastly, there is Reddit Platinum, which provides 1 month of Reddit Premium. If you're unfamiliar with Reddit Premium,
you sub
essentially it is
Aftershock,
just a
you sub
membership
Doggo,
that
you
unlocks a
sub
variety of features with
Anarchitect.
Reddit, including the option to turn off ads.
Prime
Moving
Loan.
back to Chris CGC, he became well known, as I said, for randomly gilding posts on the r teenagers and r/dank memes subreddit. Keep in mind, this guy clearly targeted a younger demographic by going for those subreddits. For example, in this individual post, it would cost about $350, which features 69 platinum badges and
Oh, he's an
69
epic
months of
memer.
Reddit
Big
Premium for the
man.
user who posted this. This was
Imagine
common
fucking
behavior
CEO
for
being a
Chris, as he
memer.
would basically be handing out money every
Okay,
single
that's
day.
Elon Musk,
In
actually.
fact,
Never
this was
mind.
even so common that they created an entire subreddit called Children of Chris, dedicated to people who were gifted gold by him. At first glance,
Thanks
this
for 5
seems
gift subs,
entirely
All-American. Good to see you,
harmless.
man.
This guy was being generous with a lot of
Appreciate
money
it.
and was reported to be spending thousands of dollars a day on gilded Reddit posts. As you can imagine, many people didn't have a problem
Thanks
with
to
getting
Resub
free
Rich.
Reddit Premium memberships, and it got to a point where people would just pass this guy's name around and say, "Message Chris, he'll send you gold." As I said, at first it
I'm
seemed
surprised I've
rather
never heard of
benign.
this.
It seemed like this guy simply had a bunch of money to go around and was willing to pull stunts for the sake of entertainment. But as time would go on, he would reveal the actual motive behind these gilding sprees. As a result of this guy gilding almost any post that was in his way, many people were curious about the man behind the gildings. A lot of people looked up to him because he
you
was
get
very
subs, Phantom.
generous.
Thank you.
However, in an interview done by Insider Meme Trading after he gained some attention,
Insider
he was questioned about his
Meme
motive regarding the
Trading.
mass gilding sprees, to which he responds saying, He wanted to get the message
Actually,
out
cool name,
that
not gonna lie.
DMT cured cancer. In case you're unfamiliar, DMT is an incredibly powerful
Holy shit.
hallucinogen. DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, has been studied in the field of cancer. However, there is no consistent peer-reviewed evidence that would suggest this in any way. And let's be real here.
God, what is it?
If a
What is
cure
it?
for cancer was found, do you think a guy would have to do a publicity stunt on
Do they
Reddit,
also use
spending
that for joint
thousands of
pain?
dollars to get the word out? In the months to
Give
come.
me 1 second. Hold on. Sorry to pause, but I need to look that up. DMT, they also use that for joint pain, don't they? Let me see. No, this isn't what I was thinking of. I remember a couple years back, I knew a guy that was pedaling hard for some, like, really pseudoscience-y liquid jar-ish shit. Like, it looked like what the xenomorphs were born out of. And it was dimethyl something. I remember that, which is why it started to, like, fucking Winter Soldier me there for a minute. And he was like, this'll work, this'll cure your joint pain, inflammation, might make you taller, it's gonna make your beard more full. DXM? Maybe. Thanks for the hey, Socks. Good to see you, man. Thanks for the 5 gift subs, Socks and Lich. Jesus. Give you the generosity tonight.
He
God
still
damn.
found some notoriety and started
Sounds
to
like
gain a following
HGH.
as a result of his generosity.
No.
And something I want to note here, many of these followers were not in it for the sake of his teachings, however, they were a byproduct of being around him. Nonetheless, a portion of people stuck around and did listen to what this guy had to say, and
Thanks
there
to
are
Prime
former
Jordy.
believers of
Teriakis,
Cantamoism.
Robotits,
And as
Gift
time
Sub
went
Fairy.
on, and through the help of
Resubmist.
Cantamoism exposed, a subreddit we will get to, many people started to outline the potential symptoms of a forming cult. As I said earlier, looking back on this situation is
I
incredibly
highly doubt it's like a
difficult,
real
as all
cult.
the original threads surrounding
Probably just
the
an
r/slash
updutes to the left.
Cantamoism
Thanks for the
subreddit
gold,
have
stranger.
been deleted. Not to mention, Chris CGC himself was also banned from Reddit. In fact, Chris has been banned more than once. People collectively created a comprehensive list of alternate accounts that Chris was creating, and most
Thanks
of
for
them
Prime
were banned.
Jack.
What
Jock.
remains is a
Resub
subreddit
T-Bone.
called Cantamoism Exposed, in which we get a full understanding of the situation. The sidebar of this individual subreddit
Thanks for
reads
Prime
the
Game Boy.
following. Cantamoism is a cult of personalities centered around Chris Cantelmo, who came to prominence on Reddit through his mass gilding sprees. The cult espouses a form of psychedelic New Age pseudoscience, ranging from innocuous beliefs to dangerous self-harm.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
targeted members of r/teenagers for recruitment. We are here to aggregate information about Cantelmoism and help people make informed
Thanks for
decisions
resub,
to
Mad
avoid
Dog.
further recruitment. Among the pinned threads in the subreddit, we find one called Outline of Initial Concerns with Cantelmoism. Here we learn
Thanks for resub,
quite a
Bizarro.
bit about this whole fiasco. The thread reads the following. I'm interested in whether or not any true cults have ever emerged on Reddit. I've been following Chris CGC and his sub Cantelmoism. I started
no
out
fap.
participating for the awards. I had 5 years of premium after a few days of participation, but once I had more than enough gold, I continued to participate out of interest for what is the strangest, most cult-like sub I've ever seen. Today, it is starting to get more renewed interest by the Reddit community. As a leader, Chris CGC has been suspended by
Thanks
Reddit
to
for
resub
3
Sleeps
days,
and Nathan.
and it was mentioned in a popular and just deleted Ask Reddit thread described as a really weird cult-like subreddit run by a guy who gilds literally all the posters. He talks about how he has terminal brain cancer and that he's cured it with DMT, and believes DMT can cure literally everything, and the users seem to agree for some reason. My personal take is that he's a schizophrenic, but I have no proof.
Or
Without
just a
going into too
scam
much
artist, what do you
depth,
mean?
Here's a few ways in which it seems like a cult. Mind-altering practices such as meditation, chanting,
Thanks to
speaking in
resub
tongues,
Pablo and Tier 1
renunciation
sesh.
sessions, and debilitating
Resub
work
Y2K.
routines are used in excess. Perhaps the main tenet of the whole cult is that DMT is a perfect and godly substance with no bad effects that everybody should be using, and that it cures cancer and AIDS. In
Wow.
fact, he has gone as far as saying that radiation and chemotherapy are torture and make patients worse, not better, which is extremely dangerous advice to people who have cancer. He has also urged his
Damn, did
followers
Chris
to
talk
stare
to Steve
directly
Jobs
into
or
the sun
something?
every day,
Is he
saying that we have
responsible
been
for that?
tricked into fearing the sun to make us dumber. The leadership induces feelings of shame and or guilt in order to influence and or control members. Often this is done through peer pressure and subtle forms of persuasion. This is a textbook and egregious example, especially when it turned out that the user YanZZ didn't actually do anything wrong and the cult members refused to accept it. The group is elitist, claiming a special, exalted status for itself, its leaders, And members, for
What?
example, the leader is considered the Messiah, a special being, an avatar.
No fucking way. All because he was gifting Reddit gold?
To save humanity.
That's like
Here's
just
how he
spitting in your
described
face
himself
and
to
then
Dowd
wiping it
while
off.
he was
Reddit gold is
proselytizing in the
useless.
sub. The leader, Chris CBC,
Truly
is
useless.
constantly referred to as God. He believes that he has special
Hold
knowledge.
on, I need to look at... What does Reddit gold do? Doesn't it just grant you access to the Reddit gold lounge? Like, who cares? So you hang out with some pretentious douchebags? Like, does it do anything else? Let's see. What is Reddit gold? Rewarded the post. What can you do with it? Here we go. So you get a week of Reddit Premium and 100 coins you can use to give someone silver. Is there ads on Reddit? I can't say I've perused the internet without an ad block in years. Is that like a big draw? Like you don't get ads? For a week? Oh, okay. It seems like an awfully large thing to say that the guy who gives you Reddit gold is the Messiah. Jesus. Thanks to the Prime Poison. Thanks to the Resubble
knowledge
Kami.
of the spirit world and wants to use the knowledge for the express goal of world peace. The group is also preoccupied with bringing in new members. Monetary rewards are gifted with participating in the sub. The group is preoccupied with money. He spends thousands of dollars a day gilding members with Reddit money, and he also is increasingly paying members real money and offering to pay for their plane rides to
That's a
visit
great
him.
deal. Wait, he's just giving away money?
He spent over $100,000 recruiting followers with a main focus on
Yeah, just fucking pretend to call him the Messiah. Who cares? Free cash from a weirdo.
Outrageous things he has said, but I think that thankfully most of these are not taken completely seriously by his followers. His most devoted followers definitely still believe him, though.
AC
It
Tier 1
seems like
just did
Reddit is
stuff
starting to
with
catch
Prime.
on and get worried, as
No
his
7
account was
and
just
Resub Otis.
suspended for 3 days for telling people to call me or visit me to experience DMT as anti-cancer treatment. He encourages schizophrenia and believes that it's caused by excess DMT and that hallucinations are completely real. As the poster of this thread starts to update it, he goes into one of the podcast episodes that have now been deleted. Edit 3. I just listened to Chris' most recent podcast episode, and I can finally understand what people see in him as a leader and why his followers seem to love him. I'm almost convinced that he's an amazing but insane human being. Either that makes him less threatening because he's not the type of person to start a dangerous cult, or more threatening because he is the type of person that could convince enough people to pull it off. The first half is just a normal conversation, which establishes trust in him before he transitioned to the crazier second half. We learn how Chris befriends the homeless and lets them come into his house whenever they want to.
That's kind of nice, though.
He wishes he had enough space to let thousands of them sleep in his backyard.
What?
He does have over an acre.
Maybe this guy is the Messiah.
Enough to start a commune/cult on a smaller scale. Then, in the second half, he starts talking about DMT, albeit in a far less insane
that monkey
way
in the Prime King
does.
Joe.
He then makes some apocalyptic prophecies that he previously talked about on Reddit. He talks about things such as a recession worse than the Great Depression being imminent and World War III between US, Iran, and Israel being imminent as well. However, he does say that those two things will actually be good for everyone except the rich. Next, he tells us what his ideal society looks like. He wants something beyond communism, where money is made illegal. It's not too big of a stretch to say that he might consider implementing such a society on a smaller scale.
Money
if
is
he gains
illegal.
Enough devoted followers. Lastly, he talks about suicide. At first, he said he thinks the people who commit suicide go to a better place.
Oh, wow.
And are better off.
Holy shit.
This is obviously a very scary idea when you look at how common mass
suicide
is in cults. He seems to be aware of this as he quickly changes his tune to say that he really thinks that people who commit suicide have to start their life all over again, which would be boring. Overall, there are some Jonestown vibes, but mostly he just seems like an extremely moral, charitable, and crazy person. His followers fall in love with him for his morality and charity,
up for me, Kaiser.
missing
Well,
out
thank you
on the
then if you
crazy
did, man.
side, and that's where I think the danger lies. Alright, now, as I said previously, many of the links are dead. However, going over to his website, we can in fact see many of the claims and the beliefs held by this guy, and they still stand
Monster
in the
Shark and
discovery
Gunnabarf
section
in the
of
Prime
website.
Chronic.
While it might be insane to think that many people even remotely entertain this guy, He made examples out of a few of his devoted followers. And even
Jonestown
paid
is one
for
of the
their
most
college,
wild
in some
stories,
cases
yeah.
up to $15,000.
Whoa.
As a result, many people sucked up to him in hopes of financial gain. But at the time, Reddit turned a blind eye as they were getting paid through the nose by this guy. I personally believe, as well as many other people, that most of his so-called followers were just in it for the sake of
crazy
money.
in the recent
And when there
years.
stopped being handouts on a daily basis, almost all of his followers started to turn on him for not providing evidence of his claims. At first, some people were willing to be patient since Chris had never provided any proof towards his claims regarding DMT. He came from a scientific background and would constantly post about his upcoming research being published. However, that obviously
Wait,
never
is this
happened.
Chris? This guy doesn't look like a dank memer at all. Looks like Tom Hanks in character. I thought it was gonna be a young guy. Cult leader my ass, Grandpa.
At another point
Ew.
in time, one of Cantalmoism's main
Give me
followers
back that
got a
Reddit
restraining order
gold.
from Chris, which led to him getting doxxed. This led to death threats for leaving the group, and ultimately this situation was starting to spiral. Later on, death threats would flood into basically anyone critiquing the group. However, many people noticed that in many cases, it was just Chris on an alternate account. In an effort to keep some of his followers on the hook without any financial incentives, Chris became desperate and would make alt accounts pretending to be news outlets, stating that they were working on a story about his research. However, obviously people saw right through this. Up to this point, even the most devoted followers started to not be able to turn a blind eye towards his childish behavior. In many situations, he resorted to name-calling like a 5-year-old, and in other cases, he even told the person with cancer that he was an idiot. As a result, his own subreddit turned against him. It read the following: "This is a place for a very mentally ill man named Chris Cantalmo to post his craziness. Please get this man help and don't support him. He has no money left, no family left, and nothing good in his life."
Damn, Chris, fucking blasted
So
on your own dank meme.
Where around a month ago, this Reddit community as a whole has been banned. I can only imagine because Reddit wasn't getting paid off nearly as much. While Chris still remains online on his other platforms, he's still trying to recruit members in person, but his digital footprint still remains.
I want to check out
Even
that
his
channel.
own Discord turned against him, and one of his top followers has now taken over. From an outsider like myself, looking at this entire situation, in my opinion, I definitely see how this seems quite premeditated. I can see the angle a lot of people have mentioned regarding this guy being mentally ill as well. However, it seems like from the very beginning, this was calculated towards creating a cult. This guy comes from an educated background. He graduated from Yale. He set up a website. He targeted impressionable people, and he used one little sliver of attention and was vindictive towards anyone who didn't agree with his beliefs. Thankfully, however, the situation.
Hey, thanks for the 10 new subs again, Cyaxis. Good to see you tonight.
Something else I should note is that I also believe, to a
generosity.
certain extent, Chris has been experiencing a degree of psychosis. I don't believe this guy to be mentally stable due to the constant drug use. Here we had a guy with a great livelihood and a good life, and he was well off. Then, seemingly out of nowhere in the later years of his life, after being an atheist for 56 years, he becomes ultra-spiritual as a result of taking DMT. And
he just wanted to start a cult, man. He just did it the wrong way.
As a god, and all of his teachings
he should have started playing Minecraft.
And psychosis. That being said, I don't think talking shit directly to this guy helps whatsoever. As a result, anyone watching this video, don't go harass this guy. His brain obviously processes information differently, and even though what he attempted to do was terrible, it won't stop him from continuing
Really appreciate it,
doing what he's
Cyaxis. Thank you for the
This guy
generosity.
needs professional help. Instead, this video stands as something much more effective
Thanks
for
for
the
the sub, Kaiser.
situation than directly talking shit to him. At this point, if anyone comes across this rabbit hole or topic on the internet, they have a reference point to which they can understand how this group came to being and avoid it. With that being said, I thank you for joining me here today as we looked at
Well, that was
the
actually kind of
weirdest story
interesting.
I've ever seen on Reddit. This is Barely Sociable. Have a great night.
Is that true? Only one guy said this, but now I have to know. Did Chris Cantalmo actually kill himself because this video? I'm gonna look it up. I feel like I'm being lied to, but that would be horrible. Let's see. Oh my god. Wait, that's real. That's fucking awful. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that guy wasn't lying. Wow. Well, that was a ride. Holy this.
Since pilots couldn't see out of the plane because of angled landing, engineers put together a solution.
The Concorde featured a droop snoot.
Droop snoot?
Yeah, the snoot would droop.
The snoot drooped.
Solid. That will do it.
I'm gonna try to smoke my own weight in weed eventually.
Holy shit.
There's only time in front of me, and I've already done 4.2 pounds. I can do it.
What a goal. Wow.
Hi, I'm Tony Greenhand.
Hey, Tony.
26, and I'm a professional joint roller.
The National Joint League. Holy fuck, the NJL?
Basically jump
That's
out of bed
huge.
and start rolling joints too. I make coffee and I start rolling, and while my coffee's being made, I'm like, boom, let's do it.
Tony
Before I got
truly
into
is
joint
an
rolling, I was
artist.
growing weed. It was pretty basic. I also bred cannabis, but just on the side. I'm known more for the joints now, which is a surprise to me.
Oh, wow, what the fuck? Tony's good. They should sell his joints right next to like Banksy's work.
My mom
and
was
Jackson
a
Pollock.
clerical at a police department, so she absolutely hates what I do.
It's kind of
See
like
that I'm
balloon
making
animals for
sleeves
adults.
Here, and then I'll fill the sleeves instead of rolling these, and that's because I want this to be 100% perfect. Since it's gonna be the barrel of the gun, I need it to be straight all the way across.
That's pretty cool, actually. What the fuck?
He's got a private jet, and he's coming to pick it up.
So people are paying $7 grand for like a artistic joint? What a good deal. I mean, Tony seems like a good guy. I mean, he just loves to roll joints, I guess. I mean, they were pretty cool. They were not lame like I was expecting. Oh my fucking god, I know this. Oh shit. I remember this. This was like when I was still new to Reddit. Yeah, I remember this. This was solved. If I remember, I'll let the video play and then I'll go off memory and see if I'm right. He's a tier 1 Guatemalan god. I did not know her name was Elisa Lam. It wasn't solved recently, it was solved pretty soon after this video aired. Was it real or she faked it? Bro, she fucking died. What do you mean? Did she fake it? That'd be the ultimate prank. What I remember most about this is this hit Reddit. It got really big on Reddit, and the Reddit detectives went hard. Like, they were going in on this video. I remember reading all kinds of theories. This was also around the time where Slender Man was still popular, so I saw a lot of Slender Man theories that she was trying to escape from him or some shit. Like, it got weird quick. Does it show how she died? No. So I'll just tell you what happens once the video ends, because the video is super weird. But what happens is she eventually was found in a water tank on the roof. She died. Yeah, so on top of this hotel, she was found in a water tank, drowned. And the explanation, if I remember correctly, this is all off memory. One of her friends came forward and said that they had actually done acid earlier that day, which explains all the weird hand movements and shit, and what must have happened is she just got real confused and then ended up wandering into the roof and fell into the water tank or some shit. I'm going off memory, so I don't know if that's right. So it had to do with stopping her medication. They said there was no evidence of trauma, assault, or suicide, so bipolar being a big factor. Yeah, it doesn't really give a very good explanation as to what happened, but it does solve a lot of the questions, like such as how she got on the roof, saying that it was easily accessible via fire escape and the tank lids were open. But it doesn't say how she closed the tank lid from the inside. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like it really has a good explanation. Yeah, it was open, but it was also closed when they found her, which means she would have had to have closed the lid from the inside, which is apparently not easy. Oh, it was open when they found her. Oh, what? Wait, didn't it just say ignoring the problem of how it was closed? What? Didn't I read that somewhere? Where did I just read that? Oh. Hotel employee found the body, said the lid was open at the time, removing the issue of how she could have closed the lid from the inside. Got it. Got it.
The Dyatlov Pass incident. A case that many consider to be one of the greatest mysteries of all time. As over 60 years later, there is no agreed upon conclusion to what exactly had happened to those hikers.
Whippers.
And part of what has always drawn me to this mystery is its uniqueness, as I always thought nothing like it could ever happen again. But little did I know, it already has. It was August 9th, 1993, as a group of Ukrainian kayakers paddled their way through a remote river in southern Siberia. The river tour would take them near the vast Khamar Daban mountain range and give them a full view of its beauty. As they followed the twisting river, the group would
the
catch
Charles
a glimpse
White
of
ass
something
incident.
moving in the woods. It was a young lady wandering aimlessly with a frozen expression on her face. She was all alone with blood on her jacket.
Uh-oh.
The kayakers would call out to her, asking who she was and if she needed help, but the girl didn't answer. In fact, she didn't say a word. She had seen on that mountain range had traumatized her, to the point where she
Canadian
couldn't speak,
and
having barely spoken of the incident to this day.
Watching, man.
The kayakers would bring her back to civilization, where it would be discovered that her name was Valentina Yudachenko.
Hello,
a hiker
Valentina.
who had been visiting the area as part of a tourist expedition through the mountain range.
There's a gift sub shack.
But the concerning part was, she wasn't alone. Or at least she hadn't been when she started her hike. In fact, she had been with 6 other hikers during her trip. Hikers who were nowhere to be found.
There's the
What
prime
happened in those
Bjorn.
mountains that was so
Bjorn.
traumatic that it left Valentina in a state of shock for years and caused the disappearance of her entire crew. Well, the story is as strange and disturbing as it gets. It all started on August 2nd, 1990.
Real quick, anyone that's seen this, is there anything TOS worrisome in here? They don't show any bodies or anything, right? I'm gonna assume not, but just want to cover bases. We good?
Khamar Daban. The group consisted of 24-year-old Tatiana Filipenko, 23-year-old Alexander Kresin, as well as Denis Shvachin, Victoria Zalasova, Tamar Babanov, and of course, Valentina Yudachenko, each of whom were merely teenagers.
There's the prime Tateax and
Despite their
Loki.
youth, they were all well-trained and
No worries,
experienced
Justin, thank you.
hikers. And the group was led by 41-year-old Ludmila Korovina, an internationally renowned master in pedestrian tourism. They were a well-prepared and run group, and the Khamar Daban Mountains were not viewed as being dangerous,
Thanks for the gift sub, Alvinor.
especially in the middle of summer. Second,
23-year-old
2 other groups would
teenagers,
follow
yeah.
on nearby trails.
I don't know what to tell you.
One of which was even led by Ludmila's 16-year-old daughter, Natalia.
I
Two
know all
would
about
plan
that,
on
Jukes.
meeting up the very
I
next
talked about it
day
as well.
in the mountains along with their respective crews, before Ludmila and company would continue on towards Ludyanka, their final destination. However, the forecast couldn't have been more wrong.
I'll look into it later, Crone.
On and off spouts of freezing rain poured down upon the group and predicted an oncoming snowstorm as the group climbed the Kanulu mountain. And by August 4th, the snowstorm was in full effect, pummeling the exhausted hikers and forcing them to reroute and miss their connection with
Just get an
Natalia's group.
umbrella, nerds.
Drained of energy, Ludmilla would make the call to set up camp.
Who would take this photo? They look miserable.
For the night. A move that to this day is still questioned, as the hikers were merely half an hour away from a shelter that stood on top of that very mountain. The sun would rise the next day to more stormy weather, with the snow continuing to fall around them.
And Prime Bond.
Ludmilla knew that staying where they were would only spell trouble.
Yeah, I read about it, Dor.
So she ordered the group down the mountain and into the cover of the woods below. They'd never make it there. Just minutes into their descent, Alexander Christin would begin to stumble. The man considered to be the strongest of the group would fall to the ground as his mouth began to fill with foam. Blood would rush out of his ears and his nose as he laid there seizing violently in front of his group. The hikers stood there stunned. Christin was in perfect health, and just minutes ago he was fine. And now he laid in front of them, dying. They had been outside for mere minutes.
It's a haunted
Already
trail.
one of their crew members were down. The 5 hikers continued moving forward without their leader and their strongest member, trudging ahead in a state of shock and confusion. However, this descent wouldn't last long. As they walked out of sight of Ludmilla and their dying friend, screams started ringing out from on top of the hill. It was Ludmilla. They rushed back up to see what was the matter.
A bear.
Only to find a disturbing scene.
A
Alexander
polar bear.
was lying there, dead. And Ludmilla was dying too.
What?
Unable to move and on her last breath. To this day, it's still unclear what she died from, with reports saying that she had suffered from the same mysterious illness that Alexander seemed to have, while others say that it may have just been a heart attack.
They show a body? Well, it can't be one of theirs unless they just started taking photos. Here, let me just double check. Scanning through it right now, I don't see anything like that. All I'm doing is spoiling the fucking story. Also, early hypothesis, the lady that survived, Valentina, she killed them and made up the story. This shit is making no sense right now.
But either way, chaos erupted from the group. Both Victoria and Tamar would quickly collapse on the ground, twitching violently and bleeding the same way that Christin had. They began tearing at their clothes, ripping them off and grabbing their necks as if they were being choked, all the whilst they desperately tried to gasp for air. Valentina rushed to help.
Sounds like something out of
Victoria,
Dr. Stone, like they
in an instant,
went to like a
suffering
poison
girl
well.
would sink her teeth into Valentina, biting her and forcing her to back off.
What?
While this happened, Dennis started to run away from the group out of fear and confusion, having no idea what was happening to his friends or why. He could only watch as, one by one, they began to lose their minds.
Thanks again, Liam. Thanks to the
and
resub
their
Niners
lives.
rule.
With Dennis hiding from the group, Tatiana
Really appreciate
also
it, Max.
began to tear her warm clothing off, exposing her body to the freezing cold elements. She too grabbed for her throat and acted as if her own body was torturing her. Once on the ground, she would turn her attention to the rock that laid next to her, and in an instant she would begin to smash her head against it, over and over again, until her body would go limp. In a matter of
Why do you keep saying hypothermia? In everything I've ever heard and learned about hypothermia, I've never heard about someone suffering from it, ripping their clothes off and turning into a zombie. Why do people keep saying hypothermia? Is there something I'm not understanding about it? 20 to 50% of hypothermia deaths are associated with paradoxical undressing. Oh, so this is real. This typically occurs during moderate or severe hypothermia as the person becomes disoriented, confused, and combative. Wow. They may begin discarding their clothing, which in turn increases the rate of heat loss. This is a real thing. I've never heard of this. In all of those like survival movies and shit, you never see the main character that's suffering from hypothermia getting naked and slamming his dick on a rock. This is interesting. Paradoxical undressing.
Succumbed to their mysterious symptoms. Dennis would emerge to help Valentina, as the two were the only ones left who hadn't faltered. However, their health was starting to wither as well. They remained in the forest, close to the site where their whole group had just died, unsure of what to do next.
Thanks for resubasing and have fun, Naughty.
I can't imagine the silence
And yes, I've heard of that Guatemalan.
they must have been experiencing.
And
As they
maybe
stood
we
there
will.
together after witnessing all their friends drop dead in front of them. Friends that a mere hour ago were in perfect health. And the stark fate wasn't quite finished with the group either, as a short time later, Dennis would collapse alongside Valentina, as he too began bleeding profusely, leaving Valentina as the only living member of the group. Completely traumatized and scared for her life, Valentina took supplies from the camp and proceeded to wander alone in the forest. She did so for 3 days before being found by the kayakers.
Oh, okay, never mind. Probably this is probably what you were talking about. So you're telling me, and we'll go back to the video in a second, but I have to skip the bodies. So you're telling me that Valentina somehow hiked for 3 more days after her entire group all got hypothermia at the same time? I feel like she'd be very close to it as well. Unless she just had, like, really warm clothing. I don't know. Judging by the video here, it'd be kind of hard to like hide this as a murder. So I fall back on my theory. I don't think it's right. I think I'm wrong.
A story that seemingly makes no sense. 6 healthy people turning insane and dropping dead in the matter of minutes.
Just play audio.
Which
fine.
prompts the...
I mean, there's not a lot here, but sure. It's in another language too, so. Thanks to the huge tier 3. Resub Gimji and
As they
Kukius.
received no guidance from the deeply traumatized Valentina. And what the rescue party saw when they stumbled upon the scene would shake them to their core. With one member saying it was a scary picture, the hikers were lying on a small ledge, some huddled together,
Oh wait,
some a little
I forgot
distance
these.
away. They had a story that seemingly makes no sense. 6 healthy people turning insane and dropping dead in the matter of minutes, which prompts the
I didn't know it came
all-important
up twice.
question, what happened to
Still
those
blurred.
hikers?
It's fine.
A question that to this day remains without a true answer, where autopsy reports ruled that the 6 hikers had died of hypothermia and protein deficiency, pointing to the idea that the group had not been eating enough throughout their trip. But the more I look into this, the less I believe that this is possible.
What? Why?
Just looking over the symptoms, this cause of death does explain some of their behaviors, such as the paradoxical...
Hey, I just learned about that. Fuck
However,
yeah.
It fails to explain them all.
Makes a
The
prime
biting,
Truman and
the banging
Dodo.
of their heads against rocks, the foaming of the mouth, and the bleeding are all inconsistent with this conclusion. So how could hypothermia have set in so quickly?
Must have been
After
very
all,
cold.
It was summertime, and despite the snow, the temperature was likely barely below freezing. Also, if hypothermia were truly to blame, and they were in such bad shape that each hiker died in the span of minutes, then how could Valentina have continued
That's
to
what I
survive
said.
for 3 more days? It just doesn't make sense. And as for the protein deficiency, Valentina herself had mentioned that the group had eaten well throughout their trip, and had even ate together on the morning of their deaths. It's also worth noting that they ate as a group together, with each member eating the same thing. So how had Valentina survived if she had eaten what they had eaten? And has caused myself and many others to doubt this theory. But if it wasn't
Thanks to resub
hypothermia
GGG.
and protein deficiency, then what could it have been? As is the case with most mysteries, some have blamed the supernatural.
Yeah, it was
Something
Bigfoot.
otherworldly had happened to the group, while others have taken a more scientific stance, blaming things like low frequency in the area, which caused the group to go in a panic.
What?
But I have a hard time believing either of these, as the area was not all that remote, and it's well studied by scientists. Plus, this doesn't line up with Valentina's testimony, as well as the conditions of their bodies. Another possibility is that the group had eaten something poisonous on their trip, an idea that is certainly possible, as Ludmilla was often known to be a forager. So perhaps
Oh,
it was
God.
some sort of fungus or
Jesus,
berry, giving
yeah.
it to the group to eat.
That's the
without
worst leader to
realizing
have.
that it was actually toxic. A poisonous mushroom could certainly cause the hikers to hallucinate and potentially bleed internally. But the issue is, Valentina never mentioned that the group had foraged for food.
Well,
And
ask
she is
her.
on record saying that they had eaten well. If they had ate something suspicious out there, she certainly would have told authorities.
Needs to give
Plus,
some
if they had
Archer
all
and the
eaten
Prime Bell.
together, then how had Valentina not been poisoned? And finally, Ludmilla was an expert at this kind of stuff, so it's unlikely that
The
she would
resub
make
done.
a mistake of this magnitude, especially given how well she knew the area. But if it hadn't been the food that had poisoned them, then perhaps it was something in the air.
Chemtrails.
Russia has long since been known for their development of deadly chemical weapons, producing them in secret and testing them in undisclosed locations. And around this time, it's documented that
Thanks
they
for resub,
had
Wheeler.
a specific interest in
Yeah, we can
deadly
do that
nerve
next.
agents, chemicals
Thanks
that
for
could have
acid.
caused the hikers to snap and act the way they did, as well as causing their bleeding and foaming of the mouth. Because of this, many think it's possible
Thanks for resub,
that the
Asnai.
Russians had been testing or even dumping their chemicals in the area where the hikers just happened to be.
What?
After all, in 1993, the Soviet Union was already disbanded, an event that caused thousands of these chemical weapons to go missing, the best possibility for explaining how it happened so quickly. Now, following this theory even more, the case gained virtually no media coverage, besides for a single local article, and it's barely known to this day, pushing some to believe that it could have been covered up. And there's also one final key detail that I found in my research that could point to this theory being true. After authorities were alerted that a group of tourists were missing, they
Just in
didn't set
case.
out a search party until a full week had gone by, despite there being clear weather. Some online have taken this as an indication that authorities were waiting for the toxins in the area to clear before beginning their search. But there are some issues.
No, I don't know that
First
one.
of all,
Come.
the location where the hikers were visiting was fairly popular, and they were a mere 100 meters away from a shelter that was designed for people to stay in.
This channel's popular
So why would
garbage.
the military test or dump weapons
I've
there?
never heard of the Khamar
Wouldn't they
Daban
select a
incident.
more remote area?
The fuck are you talking
And
about?
also, how would Valentina... It's a frustrating case as the answer seems so hard to settle on, potentially because it's been incredibly underreported.
Thanks to resub.
And the reports
Urona.
that are out there are filled with
And
quite
yeah, I
a
know
bit
that
of
one's Sloth.
speculation, rather than fact. Also, of the original articles written on this, many were made in other languages, which may have led to things being lost in translation over the years.
Oh, maybe.
And though Valentina's
talk.
testimony tells us what had happened on those mountains, it's also possible she had misremembered things, especially given the extreme shock and trauma she had experienced. She had also just recently started discussing this event, leaving things to be forgotten over the years. So with all these factors, it's possible we may not even have the full story, which just adds more mystery to this strange case. And given the lack of attention it's received,
They weren't
it's
malnourished,
possible
is
we
the
may never
thing.
know for sure what happened in those mountains.
If I had to wager a guess, I'd still go with hypothermia. And what do you mean popular garbage? I've never... fucking Khamar Daban has like nothing about it. Yeah, I think hypothermia. I think it's unlikely she poisoned them. I feel like that would have been easily detected. I also don't think that they ate anything poisonous, considering they weren't malnourished, so they were just eating shit they brought. I think it had to do with literally just hypothermia. And then she just happens to be stronger, built differently. The Redditor that vanished? Okay, wait, that sounds great.
The variety of daily users from all walks of life congregating on one single public
Thanks, Resub
forum
Eddie.
has created a sense of community that's
Amen.
nearly unmatched in the current online landscape. Because of this, the website's given us the ability to look into our fellow Redditors' post histories, giving us a small peek into the lives they live. Oftentimes, these are mostly mundane. However, if you do a bit of digging, you'll find some that stand anomalous, abandoned, and forever embedded within the corner they carved online.
That's deep.
In 2017,
That's deep.
a user named Flip&Flop made a post explaining that they're eager to try out a drug by the name of Datura. While the initial response was greatly against it, Flip&Flop ignored
I
the
have
advice
no idea
and
what that
did it
is. What the
anyway,
fuck is that?
creating disturbing update
Here's a Prime
comments
7.
and leaving behind baffled onlookers that feared the worst had happened to them. This is the story of Flip&Flop.
If it's bath salts, then he probably just went to Florida. He probably took that
mystery
shit
begins
and then
on the
immediately went to
r/drug
Florida to get
subreddit.
more. I solved the case right away.
On the night of April 17th of 2017, Flip&Flop would jump in with a simple question. Finally got my hands on some Datura. How much should I take? Their post reads the following. Hi guys. I finally got some Datura to try out. I'm free tomorrow and have the house to myself, so I'm really excited
Can I get
to
it?
try the effects
So it's
of
not
this
bath salts?
plant. I have around 60 seeds, some dried flowers, and leaves. How much should I take for a nice first-time trip? I was thinking of crushing up X seeds and making tea with them. Drink the tea and smoke a couple of leaves while the tea is starting to
Damn, this guy's got it figured out. What the
Would
fuck is
15
this?
seeds be enough?
Very classy.
Sources on the internet tell me a regular dose is around 10 to 20, but I've seen some talk about over 30 seeds. Thanks guys.
It's close to acid. Okay.
It could have
Not
permanent
close to acid at all.
effects and can
Okay. Before I continue, how about I just look it up? So that way I can be caught up on what the fuck this is. Chat has no idea, so I'm just gonna look it up. Because I've actually never heard of that, which is surprising because I know of like every big drug. This must not be a very popular one. It's a poisonous plant, also known as devil's trumpets. Devil's trumpets. Okay. That's pretty fucking wacky sounding. Yeah, it looks like it's a psychedelic.
cause death. A user named Rect recalled their prior experience with Datura, claiming that they're still scarred from it, in hopes of deterring the OP from giving it a try. I bought 2 Datura Inoxia plants from a local
Thanks for some
greenhouse.
Cam Bam,
ate and smoked both of
GMB,
them
and
over
Krusty.
the course of about 2 weeks. I never noticed too many effects initially. Dry eyes and mouth, hot flush skin, rapid heartbeat. But I was 100% in a state of psychosis that whole time and for about 2 weeks after I stopped using it. Like someone here said, it's a deliriant, so I wasn't even aware of how totally fucked I was.
Wow.
My
Jesus
friends got
Christ.
increasingly worried about me, and I finally broke down mentally. About a month later, I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and severe panic disorder with derealization and depersonalization.
Why is he still in the drugs subreddit then?
While the effects felt by Rect were
Like,
severe,
he had this fucking awful experience and he's still in the same subreddit.
according to a Logarithm the Great, they claim that the potency of the drug can vary from person to person, and even sometimes through the time of day it's taken.
Just to give advice? I guess, maybe.
After reading this, I went forth and cross-checked their claim with a psychedelic education resource named thethirdwave.co, and found that while the time of day assertion isn't substantiated, Datura's so-called fatal dose ranges pretty widely. According to this guide,
He's a tier 1
a
frazzled
dose
and
as small
resubs
as
collect.
100 milligrams of dry seeds have been known to kill, while others have taken substantially more than that and lived. Considering how heavily any drug's effects can vary from person to person, this declaration isn't that surprising. However, it is noteworthy.
Sorry to hear that, Soul Leader.
So,
Oh,
how many
maybe
seeds
here.
should Flip&Flop take?
Thanks to the bits, Mike and Crab.
Exactly 0. None. I hope this is a shitpost. Good luck and report back, please. Best effects will be achieved by doing none of it, I believe. Throw that fucking hell in the garbage.
Wow, this is actually a pretty supportive subreddit.
Unanimous. Let's see how they took it.
Huh, not bad.
Update.
We did it, Reddit.
I've crushed some seeds, around 15 to 16, in my mortar and put them in a glass of water. I've added some lemon juice and sugar to mask the taste. I'll just have to roll my joint with the Datura leaves, and I'll be set to go. I've decided I'll be sipping on the tea and slowly smoking the leaves until I feel the effect is strong enough. After this, commenters were questioning why they'd subject themselves to such a dangerous substance. They were wished good luck and were given advice for the phenomenon that they were about to experience. For Flip and Flop, it was the point of no return. The train left the station, and they were on a one-way track to the inevitable consequences.
They, turns out, transcended. Became this ascendant being. He can now shoot lightning bolts from his dick or something. He is
It was at this
Datura
point
now.
that commenters were tuned in.
Thanks for the gifts of Mike.
Everyone knew what was about to happen. However, hope for the best remained abundant. Remind me posts, well wishes, and questions on an update flooded the space. And, at least in that
Thanks for the
moment,
gifts of Bailey.
all eyes were on the OP. 5:55 in the morning,
Never even heard of that, Sentient.
April 18th of 2017.
Thanks for Prime Max. I gave you the 10 though,
Google.com,
Sentient.
How normal again stopped now.
Oh, is it definitely like a shit post?
Needless to say, everyone's concerns were validated. However, it was good to know that the OP was still alive.
Nah, no, this is all a
The
stunt.
replies here were mostly well wishes, with a clear mood of apprehension. A user named Emilsko pled for the OP to reply to the thread when things became normal again, and another named Pest P gave their 2 cents on the matter as well. There unfortunately aren't any guarantees.
This feels very fake now.
5
I'll let it
58
ride,
in the
though.
evening. Nearly exactly 12 hours later.
He made a video game? Holy shit. He smoked so much
What you're looking at
Datura
is
that he
a
made a
GIF
game?
posted by a Redditor named Nitris in the gaming subreddit. It's allegedly depicting mammoths in an accurate battle simulator. Yeah, they nailed that one.
Well, I mean, that's
So
the
why are we
that's the
here?
that's the joke.
Well,
Okay.
because someone we know very well by this point made their way to this space
Exhibits
specifically.
cuddle.
Please, these big
Jesus,
dogs are
Soul
fighting.
Eater.
Nah, okay.
Holy shit.
It appears to me that Flip and Flop's trying to claim that, please, these big dogs are fighting, not okay. With the big dogs, of course, being their interpretation of the mammoths in that GIF. If I'm
It's
being
awful,
honest,
Soul Eater.
it's safe to say that Flip and Flop's
Doing
discovery
alright,
of
Solaris.
this post likely didn't do them any favors. Depictions of an animal quite literally launching another one in the air while under the influence of something as unpredictable as Datura would probably mess me up pretty badly.
I don't really believe any of this anymore. This just seems like a Redditor doing a
Flip and Flop
stunt.
would never return. Their thread continued to rack up comments pleading for any sort of update. However, through all of this, fear remained abundant that the worst had happened.
How does this go on for so much longer? How do you get like a conclusive answer to this?
Sadly, most of the search results surrounding the username Flip and Flop aren't useful. I was hoping to dig up accounts that they might
Thanks
have
to the big
migrated to
tier
on other
2.
websites, but I
Malarian
frustratingly didn't
dictator?
obtain much.
Thanks to the big tier 2.
Scouring the surface web is an uphill battle. We can find a considerable amount of posts asking about him. However, concrete answers to that are non-existent. There was a Flip and Flop with 1P account I found that could have been a potential lead. However, considering that the last post they made was 8 years ago on the NoFap forum, it's needless
That
to
could be
say
him.
that I was only left with dead ends.
Well, I don't know about that.
Speaking of dead ends, the following is a list of accounts and their current status I found on other websites with the name Flip and Flop. Imager, dead. Facebook, dead.
Oh, I can feel
Stumble
shit
Upon,
coming on.
Dead. Photobucket, dead. Reddit, dead.
He threw some pyro.
Clothesmaster, doesn't work. Taringa.net, dead. Babyblog.ru,
What?
this is getting weird, but dead. I'm sure you get the picture by this point. The name is surprisingly common, and the results increase tenfold once you factor in the other spelling of Flip and Flop. Brute forcing our way into tracking this person down is only going to result in wasted time and a massive headache.
Maybe
So
really.
I'm going
Thanks
to
for the
pause
five.
my search here and pivot my focus towards the actual drug he took because my curiosity's peaked.
Does he?
What even is
Does he
Datura?
take it?
How serious really is it? And is it actually as fatal as it's made out to be? To answer this, I made my way to a non-profit educational resource by the name of arrowit.org that specializes in providing information about various psychoactive plants and chemicals. In their entry about Datura, they claim that it's a woody-stalked, leafy herb growing up to 2 meters.
It doesn't look like a
Produces
scary
spiny
plant.
seed pods and large white or purple trumpet-shaped flowers that face upward. Most parts of the plant contain atropine, scopolamine, and hyoscyamine. It has a long history of use in both South America and Europe, and is known for causing delirious states and poisonings in uninformed users. This definition got me curious on the effects of atropine, scopolamine, and hyoscyamine, and so I dug a bit further. According to Arrowhead, these are known as tropane alkaloids.
So is this whole video about a guy that likely overdosed?
Disorientation, confusion,
Or is there like... I'll just let it
hallucinations,
ride.
delusions, panic, and more. Furthermore, the resource states that in this class of hallucinogens, namely,
I think it's still
are,
very
quote,
likely fake to
absolutely
begin with, but yeah.
convinced that the hallucinations and delusions are, in every sense, real, and may attempt to interact with them. This can range from amusing to dangerous. This almost leaves me to wonder what kind of experience Flip and Flop had.
This is a
since
gift
they can
sub Soul
vary pretty
Eater.
widely.
Next to bits
As
num
we know
num.
by this point, an update from their aftermath is non-existent, and at this time, we have yet to gather a detailed, first-hand account about a Datura trip. So what is it really like? A user on a website named steamit.com shared their story about 3 years ago. In their post, they claimed that they had taken about 8 dried seeds and were eager to experience the effects. After doing so, however, they were immediately met with extreme thirst, causing their, quote, mouth to dry up in a horribly scary way. The dose in which you get active effects is extremely close to the amount needed for a fatal overdose. Following this, they share
Kinsama's in
detail
prison? God damn
what
it.
it was they went through. After about an hour, I felt a weird mix of euphoria and dysphoria. It had a bizarre sense of fun to it, as reality and imagination blended to form one. It gave me a very trippy feeling, which was at the time chilling and scary. After quite a long time, maybe 2 hours, I felt poisoned as I can't remember how I acted or how I perceived the world.
I'm not
exactly.
really into this one, man.
Felt
If
like
there's
I was
only
dying,
2
honestly.
posts to go off of,
I
there's
thought it
no
was quite a
conclusive
bit of
answer.
sounds. Everything felt surreal, and I definitely had some weird
more just like a
hallucinations,
warning
which
against
at
it.
the time felt realistic and normal. Then the creature became outrageous.
Is that how it ends?
It almost seemed like too perfect of a storm. Like the perfect storm, about the fatal dose being incredibly close to the one in which you feel the effects, combined with the possibility that Flip and Flop didn't have anyone with them
Thanks,
to make sure
Resub
he was
Dog.
okay. It all seemed like the perfect storm of what not to do when trying out a substance for the first time. As a matter of fact, in some ways, it almost seemed... Here, I'll give you a hint.
Yeah, let me hear the hint.
The profile was created on April 17th, the very same day that their one and only post was made. Being entrenched in the world of internet mysteries, observations like this stand out to me like a sore thumb. It appears to me that this account was made for the sole reason of discussing their story about trying Datura. While, sure, they potentially could be separating this from their personal accounts and life due to the taboo nature of something like this, it unfortunately discounts the validity of their entire account. Furthermore,
Oh,
the
he
fact
gets
that
the
they
same
used a
conclusion.
private profile for this post explains the lack of other social media or forum handles with the name Flip and Flop existing online. Without any sort of hint at their location, their main account, or their interests, tracking down the actual person and cross-checking a potential case record is impossible. Now, don't get me wrong here. While I'm entertaining the idea that this could be fabricated, the sequence of events that took place lend credence to this being real.
What?
If we look at the post, it was made at 5:21 p.m. Central on April 17th of 2017. Over the course of the next 26 minutes, Flip and Flop would go from asking about trying it to having it prepared. If we're considering the potential that their mind was made up on...
It's not a very interesting story, to be honest. It's a Redditor made one post, and then there's 2 posts to follow it up. I'm not real into that one. To me, that sounds more like a classic Reddit shitpost thing than like a genuine overdose. But even if it was, it's still a very unsatisfying story to follow since you'll never know and there's no evidence to point to anything conclusive. Not really into that. Mario 64 Cosmic Ray? Is that a speedrunning thing or no? How cosmic rays affect Super Mario speedrunners. What the fuck is this? Spin Up Science with Dr. Ben Miles? What is he, a PhD in Mario speedruns? What the fuck is that?
Back in 2013, a speedrunner by the name of Dota Teabag was speedrunning a game of Mario 64 when suddenly they encountered what should have been an impossible glitch.
I remember this one.
They were teleported up through several platforms, saving a huge amount of time completing the level.
What the? What the?
Did you get invisible walls?
What?
Please say you got invisible.
No, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen, though.
The Super Mario 64 speedrunning community is absolutely massive, and a glitch like this
they never
reliably be
replicated
engineered
this
to save players time navigating through a level would have been huge. When the streamed clip caught the attention of a particularly prominent speedrunner, they offered a $1,000 prize to anyone that could replicate the glitch. In the glitch hunt that followed, numerous hunters tried to replicate the situation that led to this event. None of them were able to. Even when they matched it frame by frame in emulation
made one on
software,
this?
still they weren't able to replicate the sudden jump in height. After 8 years of trying, no one had been able to replicate this event. Why? Probably because it was influenced by outer space. Users
that's crazy.
concluded that
I didn't know it was
the
that
boost in height
big.
Probably happened due to the flip in a bit of a byte that describes the height of the player character, and that the likely cause, the probable cause of that flip was a particle of ionizing radiation, or more commonly called a cosmic ray. Cosmic rays originate from outer space, from stars and from supernova. They are typically protons, high energy particles, or helium nuclei that are traveling almost the speed of light through space.
Wait, this is like a legitimate thing? I thought this was going to be like some kind of fucking meme or a conspiracy.
Atmosphere, what happens is
the sun blasted 5G at the Super Mario runner.
Things like pions, electrons, other leptons, alpha particles, and photons.
Okay, hold on. Let me see Veritasium explain it. The universe is hostile to computers. Yep, and then there's the Mario 64 thing. Holy shit.
A plane plummets out of the sky. A
speedrunner
inexplicably jumps to a higher platform.
What the? What the?
And an election recount is triggered. All because of the same invisible phenomenon that permeates the universe. Each voter would insert a magnetic card into the machine and make their selection on screen. Their vote was saved both to the computer and the magnetic card, which they dropped into a box for redundancy. One of the election officials detected a problem with the results from Schaerbeek, a municipality in central Brussels. Maria Vindevogel, a little-known candidate with her own party, received more votes than was mathematically possible. They knew this because of the way the preferential voting system works.
Congrats, Maria.
They took out the magnetic cards and started a recount. One by one, they fed each of them through the machines again. After several hours, the recount was complete. The vote totals for every candidate were exactly the same as before, except for Maria Vindevogel.
Oh man, she really fell off.
The recounted number of votes was less than the original by 4,096.
Damn.
So what went wrong? How had her original tally been inflated by over 4,000 votes? They got the computer that had made the initial erroneous tally and tested the hardware again and again, but they could not replicate the error.
Lol, trolled by a neutrino.
Perfect working order.
You get pranked,
this
nerds.
left only one possible explanation, and it is seriously weird.
Reptilians.
The clue comes from the excess number of votes Vindevogel received, 4,096. Computers work using binary, strings of zeros and ones, each corresponding to a power of 2. So somewhere inside the computer tabulating all the votes was a string of bits representing the number of votes Maria received. It started the day all zeros, and then as each vote for her came in, it would increment by 1. Physically, this is done by turning on a transistor for 1 and turning it off for 0. What's remarkable about the number 4096 is that it is exactly a power of 2. 2 to the power
well,
of 12.
not yet, Wonder. I'm
That is
in this
the
one.
13th bit.
But I'm not a
So
big meme
for
guy.
Maria Vindevogel to receive an extra 4,096 votes, only one thing needed to happen. The 13th bit had to flip from a 0 to a 1. But why would that happen? Computers work precisely because bits don't flip unless we want them to. Or do they?
Oh
Looking into the
shit,
problem,
God was
Belgian
playing a
investigators found
joke?
reports of similar issues from big computer companies starting in the 1970s. In 1978, Intel reported some strange errors popping up in their 16 kilobit dynamic random access memory. The problem turned out to be the ceramic packaging the chip was encased in. With the demand for semiconductor packaging skyrocketing in the 1970s, a new manufacturing plant was constructed on the Green River in Colorado. Unfortunately, this site happened to be just downstream of an old uranium mill.
Oh,
Radioactive
classic.
atoms made their way into the river and then into the ceramic packaging for Intel's microchips. Intel scientists investigating the problem found that even trace amounts of uranium and thorium in the ceramic were sufficient to cause problems.
Wow.
In their DRAM,
It's
memory
Epstein's
was stored as
ghost.
the presence
Yeah, that's
or
probably what it
absence
was.
of electrons in a semiconductor well. The alpha particles emitted by uranium and thorium were energetic and ionizing enough to create electron-hole pairs in the silicon. If an alpha particle struck in just the right place, it could create a large number of free charge carriers, causing electrons to accumulate in the well, flipping a 1 to a 0. This is known as a single event upset.
That's pretty
a type
cool.
of soft error. The error is soft because the device hasn't been damaged. The bit has changed, but you could erase it and rewrite it with no problems. Investigators exposed the chips to alpha emitters with different levels of activity.
They should have done
Just as
gamma
you'd expect,
emitters.
They found
Create
the
the
number of
Hulk.
bit flips directly correlated with the number of alpha particles the chip had been exposed to. Immediately, these findings attracted a lot of attention. Before the paper was published, it was widely circulated in the industry. And as a result, chip manufacturers were a lot more careful to avoid radioactive materials when producing their microchips.
This is about Mario. It's all the same
Therefore,
thing.
The bit flip that gave Maria Vindevogel 4,096 extra votes wasn't caused by natural radioactivity in the computer. So where did it come from?
The sun.
After Henri Becquerel discovered radioactivity with uranium in 1896, scientists sought a way to measure it. How radioactive were different materials? And one way to do this is with a gold leaf electrometer. When it's charged, the leaf is repelled, and you can measure the amount of charge by the angle of the leaf. Now, if ionizing radiation enters the chamber, it rips electrons off air molecules, creating positive and negative charges. Opposite charges are attracted to the leaf, discharging it over time. In 1911, Austrian physicist Victor Hess decided to take this experiment further.
Hard to believe these guys were so
He loaded
smart.
electroscopes into the
They didn't
basket
even
of a
have the
hydrogen
internet.
balloon. In his
Or
first 2
Reddit.
flights, he observed the same thing as Wolf. Up to an altitude of 1,100 meters, both trips revealed no fundamental change in radiation compared to the values observed on the ground.
I'm fucking back.
Appeared to be coming
Thank you for the tier 1, Dawson.
but from the sky. Hess scheduled one of his balloon flights during a solar eclipse, and as the moon passed in front of the sun, he carefully watched his instruments. But the readings were unaffected. Even with the sun half covered, the level of radiation was the same. Since no influence of the eclipse on the penetrating radiation was noted, we conclude that even if a part of the radiation should be of cosmic origin, it hardly emanates from the sun.
How did you get a
Victor
PS5?
Hess
I bought
had
it from a
discovered
scalper.
cosmic rays,
Thanks for some Baileys
high-energy
and stuff.
radiation from space.
Wouldn't recommend doing that.
But what were these rays exactly, and where were they coming from? Well, today we know they aren't electromagnetic rays, as many suspected, but particles. Around 90% are protons, 9% are helium nuclei, and 1% are heavier nuclei. Some of them are from the sun, but they have comparatively low energy. High-energy cosmic rays, moving very close to the speed of light, come from exploding stars, supernovae, in our own galaxy and in others. And the
How
highest
often
energy
does that happen?
particles are thought to come from black holes, including the supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies. But it's hard to pin down exactly where cosmic rays come from because, as charged particles, they're deflected by magnetic fields in space. So they can wind their way through the universe for billions of years. A cosmic ray detected on October 15th, 1991, had an energy of 51 joules. That is a single subatomic particle with the energy of a baseball going 100 kilometers per hour. For obvious reasons, it was dubbed the OMG particle.
Thanks to the resub
But
innocence.
primary cosmic rays like these...
Hey, wait. The OMG particle, is that, that's what they use to, like, prove alien... Like, some people talk about that as, like, proof aliens communicated with us? Or are those two separate things? Because I remember for a lot of, like, UFO conspiracy theorists, they always talking about the wow signal, where they thought they had gotten a response back from space. These aren't related? Okay. Okay.
Get down to Earth's surface. Instead, they collide with air molecules around 25 kilometers above the ground and create new particles, like pions. These collide and decay into other particles, like neutrons, protons, muons, electrons, positrons, and photons.
Positron is a character from City of Heroes.
In one long cascade. So from a single primary cosmic ray comes a shower of particles streaming towards the Earth. It is one of these particles that investigators suspect struck a transistor in a computer in Belgium, flipping the 13th bit from a 0 to a 1 and giving Maria Vindevogel 4,096 extra votes.
Maria needs to say thank you to that supernova.
How often do things like this happen?
Write a thank you card.
In 1911, Charles Wilson made it possible to see the cosmic rays all around us when he perfected his cloud chamber, an enclosure with supersaturated water or alcohol vapor. When a cosmic ray passes through the chamber, it ionizes the gas, causing vapor to condense into tiny droplets on the ions, revealing the path of the particle. Alpha particles, helium nuclei,
it's pretty fucking cool.
Short, thick tracks, while beta particles, electrons, leave long, skinny trails. This is possibly the rarest thing to ever happen in a video game. In 2013, user Dota Teabag was speedrunning Super Mario 64 on the console. In the level TikTok Clock,
I'm glad his name's Dota Teabag.
Onto a higher platform.
What the?
Did you get invisible walls?
What?
Please say you got invisible.
No, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen, though.
The move shaves off a few seconds, and it seems like a newly discovered glitch in the game that could give speedrunners an edge. User PanandCook12 put out a $1,000 bounty for anyone who could replicate the upwarp. But so far, after 6 years, no one has been able to. The best explanation anyone can come up with is that a cosmic ray caused the glitch. On the main level, the byte was 11000101, but if you flip the last 1 to a 0, it changes his vertical position. And just by chance, this new height coincides with the higher floor.
That's so fucking cool.
Wrote a script to manually flip the bit at the right moment and was able to achieve the same upwarp. This is a particularly visible bit flip, but the truth is, cosmic rays are triggering bit flips all the time.
When people see the blue screen of death, could that be caused by a cosmic ray?
Absolutely.
These days, there are a number of ways computer chips are made resilient in the face of bit flips, like error correction code or ECC memory. But you can't totally prevent bit flips from happening. In 1996, IBM estimated that for each 256 megabytes of RAM, 1 bit flip occurs per month. And the main culprit seems to be neutrons created in the shower of particles from cosmic rays. Starting in 2009, Toyota recalled millions of vehicles due to the problem of unintended acceleration.
Time to get serious. I'm putting the glasses on. How do we stop these particles?
He said that the car was continuing to accelerate.
Let me think on it.
And he couldn't bring it to a
stop. What if
stop.
we delete space
that cosmic ray
and just keep Earth alive?
In the electronic control system were the cause. So much so that NASA was called in to help with the investigation. But it turns out cosmic rays were probably not the culprit. NASA identified as the main causes sticky accelerator pedals, poorly fitted floor mats, and most commonly, drivers pushing on the accelerator thinking it was the brake.
That's so cute. Thanks,
but
Dawson and Wonder.
Cosmic rays have caused crashes of supercomputers, especially at higher elevations. Los Alamos National Labs, located 2,200 meters above sea level, is constantly dealing with neutron-induced supercomputer crashes. So the software autosaves frequently, and neutron detectors have been installed throughout the facility. If you go even higher, like climbing up to cruising altitude in a plane, you can see the radiation from cosmic rays increasing on a Geiger counter. To 0.5 microsieverts per hour at 18,000 feet, up to 1 microsievert per hour.
So they just fucking wander on this planet willy-nilly and they don't even fucking pay for it.
And over 3 microsieverts per hour.
There's no toll system set up?
And towards the poles. At cruising altitude, this increases the chance of a single event upset by 10 to 30 times. This isn't critical if it happens in your laptop, but what if it occurs in the flight computer? On October
well, it's going to give me another thing to worry about while flying.
Airbus A330 took off from
Even though I just never fly.
to Earth. Just over 3 hours into the flight, the plane suddenly pitched down, diving 200 meters in 20 seconds.
More proof why I don't go on planes.
Everyone experienced negative 0.8 Gs of acceleration. It would have felt like the plane had flipped over.
Exoprime chaos.
G-force was enough, even with our 3-point harness, to lift us both out of the seat and push us forward as well.
Minutes later, the plane dropped another 120 meters.
Jesus, those particles are angry.
People on board were injured, many from bumping their heads into the ceiling. So the pilots decided to make an emergency landing in Learmonth. In the investigation that followed, the fault seemed to occur with the first Air Data Inertial Reference Unit, or ADIRU for short. The other potential triggering event was a single event effect resulting from a high-energy atmospheric particle striking one of the integrated circuits within the CPU module. With the space shuttle, redundancy was built in from the start. For navigation and control, there were 4 computers simultaneously running identical software. If one computer had a soft error, the other 3 would overrule it. And using this setup, they could also track the frequency of bit flips. On one 5-day mission, STS-48, there were 161 separate bit flips.
That's a lot.
Above the atmosphere, cosmic rays are so energetic, sometimes you can even see them.
Once in a while, you have your eyes closed and you're not asleep yet. And if you wait a little while, you occasionally will see a flash of light. And we think it is heavy particles or individual bursts of energy coming from radiation that are either going through the eyeball itself or going through the optic nerve. And the way that your body registers radiation going through it is amazingly enough by showing you a little flash in one of your eyes, just to remind you that you are subject to the radiation of not only our sun, but every star of the universe that is.
Does that happen? I've never had that happen.
I picture back to the first astronauts who must have closed their eyes and seen that radiation and going, I'm not going to tell anybody about this because no one's told me about it. I'm not talking. And I can just imagine the first 2 guys that said, hey, sometimes I see flashes of light. Do you see flashes of light? And then it's, oh, we all see flashes of light. Oh, okay. Well, that's all right then.
For missions to
that
other
guy's
planets,
so likable.
Protecting electronics is critical. As the Voyager 1 spacecraft departed the solar system, one of the ways we could tell was by an increase in the flux of cosmic rays it experienced. Although on Earth the particles streaming from the sun and the solar wind are a source of radiation, further out, these same particles maintain a protective bubble, the heliosphere. It helps deflect and slow cosmic rays from interstellar space, protecting the solar system from ionizing radiation. But the sun has an 11-year activity cycle, so this protection fluctuates. The flux of cosmic rays on Earth is much lower when the sun is active than when it's dormant. In the history of our planet, cosmic rays may have played an even larger role, flipping bits not in electronics, but in the genetic codes of living organisms, providing some of the variation on which natural selection acts. Maria Vindevogel is now a member of the Belgian Chamber of Representatives.
The cosmic rays chose Maria.
People, not a particle.
No, it was the particles.
Her story is a reminder of the zillions of particles winding their way through the universe for millions or billions of years.
Mr. Fever and the
one
gifts
of which
of
might,
Yoba.
at any moment, change your life by passing through a tiny transistor and crack.
That was super interesting. That was pretty fucking wild. And it all happened because of Super Mario 64. Without Mario, cosmic rays wouldn't exist. Start with the Spider-Man trailer. I'm gonna get that out of the way right away. Trailers are spoilers. I mean, the only reason I watch trailers is because chat makes me. I am not a trailer guy. I just don't care to watch trailers, to be honest. All I need to know is the movie coming out? Yes? Cool, I'll check it out. We can see the why can you see the fucking dislikes? It's super weird. Some videos I can, some videos I can't. It seems like it's rolling out really sporadically. On my phone, it's like across the board I can't see dislikes, but on computer, it's video by video basis. Are you a Marvel fan? I mean, I enjoy the movies, but I'm really tired of them at this point. Like, Eternals wasn't really interesting. Shang-Chi, I really enjoyed. Black Widow was horrible. Trying to work backwards, what was before Black Widow? Loki was good. Loki's a show, I'm talking about movies. I think they're doing well on their shows. I really think all of these like big franchises work better as shows instead of movies, because the movies just always fall into the same exact formula. Alright, I think we've waited long enough. Hopefully this will be most people that would recommend it. Exit Prime, Megmars.
Ever since I got bit by that spider,
New sub squoosh.
I've only had 1 week where my life has felt normal. That was when you found out.
They still making the Halo series? You talking about the TV series? Yeah.
Peter Parker's Spider-Man. We started getting some visitors. From every universe.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Hello, Peter. You're not Peter Parker.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
There are others out there. We need to send them back.
I already know the big spoiler.
You know, all this is kind of your mess. I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo this crap.
Look, there has to be another way!
There isn't.
I mean, it's not cringe, it's just normal. Like, it's just a normal Marvel trailer. Like, I have nothing to say about it. Like, it's just standard Marvel, man. Like,
have everything you want while the world tries to make you choose.
I do love Willem Dafoe, though.
This is all my fault. I can't save everyone.
Exclusively in movie theaters. Tickets on sale on the 29th. Spider Monday.
I just have nothing to say about it. It's just normal Marvel shit. Though I do know two things. The big fan theory is that this scene is edited, that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in this scene as well, because in this scene the lizard man gets hit by something invisible and they assume it's a punch from one of the other Spider-Men. Which I think makes sense. I think there's potential with that fan theory. And then in this scene, you can see the costume of another Spider-Man somewhere. I don't know, somewhere. Maybe here. Yeah, here. I don't see it. It's right... I guess it's a little dark on stream compared to my monitor. But there's a red and blue color up here, and people assume this is another Spider-Man. Which it could be. I don't particularly care. I'll go into the movie and get hype if I see them, and I won't be disappointed if I don't. Like, again, I don't really care about trailers that much, like at all. Forged in Fire. I still really like Forged in Fire. I just hate that they don't post the full episodes anymore. It's really upsetting. Sword hacks and slashes, the final round. Oh, it's the epic Game of Thrones sword.
Champion is Trevor. Congratulations, you're the Forged in Fire champion.
I can't believe that. I thought his blade was fucked. Still haven't watched the NASCAR one. Oh, the Everest discrepancy is Imp Lemons.
one of the most popular superlatives because it's so unambiguous. Being the first person to do anything is a big deal. All who follow you have no choice but to know your name. If you're the first
Not true.
History will remember you long after you're gone.
I used to think that too, like if you're the first person to do something, it's a big deal, but nowadays, no one fucking cares. Like think of something you use every day, a sink. Who was the guy who invented the sink? Fucking John Nobody? Like, only certain things is it cool to be first in.
Most superlatives end with the suffix est, a grammatical trait rather fittingly shared by the tallest mountain on the planet. Mount Everest is quite possibly the world's most famous landform. It towers nearly 9 kilometers above sea level and can be seen from over 300 kilometers away, equivalent to seeing New York City from Boston. It's a well-known fact that the first person to reach the summit of Everest was Sir Edmund Hillary in 1953. It's one of those pieces of trivia that gets thrown around so much that you just stop questioning it.
No, I never knew that.
Like something that should be indisputable. The first man to set foot atop the tallest mountain. An unambiguous statement of fact. Except, 29 years before Edmund Hillary reached the top of Everest, there's a small chance, but a chance nonetheless, that someone else may have got there first.
Who was the first person to poop without peeing?
The Western world first laid eyes on
another
Everest
great
in the
example.
19th
Thanks,
century,
man.
But it wasn't until 1921 when they first set foot on it. That year, the British Royal Geographic Society financed the first expedition to explore Everest and identify a route to the top. A leading member of the expedition was 34-year-old George Mallory, considered to be one of the most skilled climbers.
Hey, George.
Just 5 years prior, Mallory was fighting in the Battle of the Somme. In 1922, Mallory was about to enter one of the few places on Earth that was even more inhospitable. For millennia, civilizations around the world have considered the highest mountains to be sacred grounds. Anyone who dared to climb them would be trespassing in the realm of gods. No matter how superstitious you are, you can't deny that there are some places on Earth that human beings were never designed to go.
No, we can go anywhere.
Like Everest, the terrain
Fuck
is so
nature.
precarious that one misstep can result
Thanks
in
for the 5 gift subs, Omelet. Appreciate
For most
it.
of the year,
Thank
the
you,
summit
Omelet.
is blasted with hurricane-force winds, enough to blow any climber clear off the mountain.
I did not know
Any
that.
practical attempts to reach the summit have to be conducted in roughly a 10-day window before the annual monsoon season. Combined with highly reflective snow, people on Everest are at constant risk of snow blindness and other debilitating
Jesus
eye problems.
Christ.
Even during optimal weather, conditions
I had no
can
idea.
change in an instant. The single most life-threatening factor has to do with what isn't there. At 29,000 feet, air pressure is 3 times lower than at sea level, meaning that climbers have access to only 1/3 as much oxygen. Mount Everest is one of 14 summits that extends above the 8,000 meter mark, otherwise known as the death zone. Beyond
That's
this
hardcore.
altitude, climbers who enter this range are no longer flirting with death. They are literally in the process of dying. If anyone in the death zone fails to descend back to a safe altitude in time, their chances of survival are 0. The death zone presents an extreme complication by making any run.
Seeing pictures, it doesn't look that crazy.
Sensitive event. Climbers must maintain a certain pace on the final ascent or else risk running out of oxygen. And 99 years ago, George Mallory was one of 6 climbers trying to get there. On
No
May
way he
19,
survived.
1922,
He's still
Mallory
up there.
led Howard Somerville, Edward Norton, and Henry Morshead on
Edward
the first
Norton?
official attempt to reach the Everest
Oh
summit.
my god.
Across 3 days, the team trekked up the north side of the mountain, eventually reaching a record altitude of 8,225 meters before
Thanks for your
turning
Subakics.
back. On May 24th, George Finch and Jeffrey Bruce set off on another attempt, this time making use of supplemental oxygen. On the 27th, Finch reached a new altitude record of 8,326 meters. Immediately, Mallory was eager to make his own attempt with oxygen,
Thanks, Resub Justin.
believing that it was his ticket to making history. While many of the exhausted climbers were hesitant to make a third attempt, Mallory's fascination with Everest had begun to turn into an obsession. On June 3rd, he
Imagine being
convinced
obsessed
several
with a
climbers
mountain.
to follow him on a hastily
Idiot.
improvised trek
Find
to
a
the
waifu
summit.
like a normal guy.
They were joined by 14 Sherpa porters who were assisting in hauling equipment to the higher camps. On June 7th, Mallory's party triggered an avalanche that buried 7 porters alive. The disaster would mark the immediate end of the expedition. After the failure of 1922, he would have to wait 2 more years until his next chance to conquer Everest. The May of 1924 featured historically poor weather conditions at Everest. Not wanting a repeat of the 1922 disaster, the group decided to overrule Mallory's original plan and attempt the summit without oxygen.
Why?
The change frustrated Mallory, who now viewed oxygen as a necessity to reach the summit. After less than a day, the pair disappointingly aborted their attempt after
Ooh,
forced them to
not even 8,000 meters?
Norton and Somerville began
Rookies.
their attempt, this time finding themselves in ideal weather as they marched higher up the mountain. On the morning of June 8th, Odell eagerly waited for visual confirmation of the climbers, but Everest Peak for the moment was obscured by mist.
Oh, they
Then,
died.
At 12:50 p.m., there was a sudden break in the cloud cover, allowing Odell to clearly see the summit. There, Odell witnessed 2 black dots scaling one of the rock steps on the northeast ridge, with one
Thanks,
dot
Resub. Oh,
appearing
well.
to climb up and over the crest, just below the final summit pyramid. After 5 minutes, the mist rolled back in, and the 2 figures disappeared behind the clouds.
Thanks to Tier 1
This
Piss
small
Kinks.
fleeting moment would be the last time that George Mallory and Sandy Irvin were ever seen alive.
Oh, they did die.
Shortly
I
after the
figured.
sighting, a storm hit the mountain,
Yeah, that was a
and the 2
wild
climbers
idea.
did not return from their attempt. Odell, as the closest party member, hiked up to around 8,200 meters to search for them. But after 24 hours, he signaled the rest of the crew that no trace could be found. Mallory and
They
Irvin
became
had been lost to
Everest.
the mountain placement. Today, the fine people at Bespoke Post have sponsored
Ah,
me on an
Bespoke Post.
expedition to become the first green man to climb the tallest mountain.
Thanks to Tier
in
1
Florida.
Turtle and Resub
I'm
Mackie.
being joined by my Sherpa, Rusty Cage, and today, thanks to his help, we're going to be making history.
Now you've seen
I'll
your
let the
share
ad
of
ride.
subscription boxes, but I'm telling you, buddy, Bespoke Post is unlike anything you've ever seen before. Bespoke offers a variety of premium goods from under-the-radar brands. Many of their products come from small businesses based right here in the U.S. Whether you like
Yeah, it's like
cooking,
4 minutes,
fashion,
is
or the
it?
great outdoors, Bespoke has a box
Oh, you're
for
right.
you. And unlike other subscription boxes, at Bespoke, you only
Alright. Bespoke Post
Following
is
the
good though.
1920 The first party confirmed to successfully climb the second step was the 1960 Chinese expedition, which managed to overcome the obstacle using pitons, a climbing aid which Mallory and Irvin did not have. Even with superior tools, it still took the Chinese 5 excruciating hours to complete the climb. Future expeditions
Prime
would
Juno.
install a ladder to make surmounting the second step somewhat bearable.
Oh, thanks, Ali. Appreciate that.
Historical hindsight of the second step's extreme difficulty shed serious doubt on whether Mallory or Irvin.
So Odell killed them
back in 1924.
as a sacrifice to Everest.
Irvin, a novice climber, was almost certainly out of his depth. Mallory would have also had to scale the step using rudimentary gear while hauling.
Just get a
multiple
jetpack.
oxygen
Jesus Christ.
canisters. Making an
It's like they didn't
unassisted
even
climb
try.
on an unexplored obstacle under all these circumstances
Most
would have
interesting
required a
I've ever wanted to do?
superhuman effort,
Nothing. Fuck
and to
adventure.
do so in the 5 minutes that Odell supposedly saw. It would have to have been one of the most unlikely miracles in the history of mountain climbing. It's for this reason why many have inferred that Odell did not see the 2 climbers surmounting the second step, but rather the comparatively easier first step. Rapidly deteriorating
Some dude
weather
actually landed a
conditions over the
helicopter on
course of
Everest?
June 8th.
That is pretty cool.
Meteorological data gathered at the base camp during the expedition recorded a significant drop in barometric pressure between the 8th and 9th, which would have made the air near the summit even more thin. Everest climber Graham Hoyland extrapolated that on the day that Mallory and Irvin trekked to the summit, the drop in air pressure would have added the equivalent of 180 meters to the effective altitude of the mountain. Unfortunately, their summit day coincided with the arrival of that season's monsoon, and to get to the summit, the
So they
2
just got
climbers
fucked up
would
up
have had
there.
to survive the storm that hit the mountain
Jesus
at around
Christ.
2 p.m.
Poor guys.
Eventually,
They
though,
used
as
dead
more
people on
expeditions
Everest as
ventured up
progress
the slopes of
markers.
Everest, clues began to emerge
pretty
of
wild.
the fate of the 2 wayward climbers. In 1933, crew members discovered a lost ice pick just below the first step. The pick was eventually proven to belong to Sandy Irvin,
Sandy!
who likely dropped it near the scene of the climber's fatal accident. Now that an artifact from the missing climbers had been recovered,
thanks, Resub Jimmy.
Researchers of the mystery concluded that their final resting place couldn't have been far. Due to the extreme cold near the Everest summit, bodies stranded atop the mountain don't decompose, allowing them to essentially remain frozen in time. In 1975, Chinese climber Wang Hongbao reported spotting a body at an altitude of 8,100 meters. Judging by their clothes, the remains must have belonged to a climber from an old British expedition. 24 years later, several researchers organized a search to locate the deceased climber. It was on that expedition that Conrad Anker discovered a corpse about 300 meters beneath the site of the lost ice pick. Lying there, face down in the snow, was the body of George Mallory.
Oh!
Mallory's remains showed evidence of three key injuries. He suffered a broken leg, a puncture wound in the skull, and bruising from a rope around his waist. The bruising indicated that Mallory and Irvin were likely roped together when one of them fell, snapping the rope and separating the duo. Mallory's injuries were not severe enough to indicate a steep fall. He may have experienced a minor stumble at the ice axe location, after which he descended further down the slope where he suffered a second, fatal fall. Mallory was probably descending after the sun had set or during storm conditions.
Oh, so he didn't make it?
One of his pockets concealed a note with a list of 5 oxygen cylinders, providing evidence that the climbers had brought 1 extra cylinder than previously thought. In fact, the same search mission
Didn't they make a book about this? I don't know, man. I don't read books.
An artifact which
it's not the Outsiders. I don't know it. This doesn't seem like the Outsiders.
Rumored to be among Mallory's possessions was a photo of his wife, which he planned to place at the summit.
Oh.
The photo was not found on Mallory's body, sparking further speculation to a successful attempt. But beyond speculation, no evidence could be found that conclusively proved
whether 5 gift subs impressionable.
Reach the summit.
Thank you,
Many
impressionable.
researchers hoped that finding George Mallory would finally provide a solution to mountaineering's greatest mystery. Today, nearly 100 years after the tragedy, climbing experts are still split on the fate of Mallory and Irvin. Seasoned veterans like Conrad Anker and Graham
Maybe they faked their own death.
They did not make it.
They made it to the top and then went with aliens elsewhere.
Factors working against them. Other researchers are more optimistic.
Thanks to 5 gift subs, Lando, and the Resub Nova.
Consistency in the number of sleeping bags accounted for on the 1924 expedition, and suggests that Mallory and Irvin may have carried 2 of them on their summit attempt. There are various other creative theories regarding Mallory and Irvin, but until further evidence surfaces, a definitive conclusion may never be reached.
Until now.
Unfortunately, the mystery is
they
not
did
yet a hopeless cause, as the answer to the summit question may lie among the still undiscovered remains of Sandy Irvin. At the time, the prospect of rock samples had been completely overshadowed by the single most compelling missing piece from the 1924 expedition. As Mallory passed Howard Somerville on his final trek up the mountain,
maybe they got robbed up there.
Borrow Somerville's portable Kodak camera to capture photographs
maybe tier 1 prolapse.
Successful
the prime Jeffy.
When Mallory was found in 1999, the camera was not found among his possessions. Therefore, it is likely that Mallory handed off the camera to Irvin sometime during their descent. If the camera is ever located, the undeveloped film within could finally solve the mystery once and for all. Kodak provided special instructions to give the film its best chance at survival. But before any images can be retrieved, researchers will most likely have to locate the body of Sandy Irvin first. Xu Jing of the 1960 Chinese expedition claimed to have seen a dead climber lying on his back
then? Not worth the time.
Many researchers
I'll lose internet connection, so I won't be able to grind RuneScape.
Searches of the area
the point?
thus far turned up nothing. Somewhere high up on the mountain, the missing piece of the Everest discrepancy is waiting to be found. But until that happens, all we have are the theories. It's possible that as Mallory was staring down his greatest adversary, he may have been thinking the same way.
Yeah, I think he made it. I think he's still up there, he's just hanging out. No, I have not seen this one from Nexpo. Let me see if I like the premise. The name sounded so familiar, though. He's a Prime Twilight. And no, I have not heard of them before, Taylor.
Friday.
Sleep well, chubby.
Joseph Shones was scouting some back roads in the Plumas National Forest. He spent the better part of the day navigating his Volkswagen in hopes of returning with his family the next day.
Sure, Rip. No problem.
However, due to harsh weather conditions, his venture led to his car becoming stuck around 5:30 p.m. Miles away from help and with dwindling options, he hopped out of his car to give it a push.
This is just like...
In a strikingly unlucky turn of events, though.
Why am I blanking on the name? LEMMiNO.
Would lead to him enduring a heart attack at the worst possible place and the worst possible time. He returns to the confines of his vehicle, enduring the pain and contemplating on what to do.
Oh, this is the Dyatlov Pass.
He'd catch his biggest break. Two sets of headlights coming from the opposite direction, and the shadows of what looked like a woman, a baby, and a group of guys walking towards him while engaging in conversation.
No, it's not good. Okay.
After realizing that this could be his ticket home, he fumbled out of the car and began calling for help. Once he started doing so, the headlights turned dark, and the conversation fell silent. A couple hours later, with his car still running, Shones would encounter another anomaly. Flashlights shining in the far distance.
He's the prime seraphim.
As expected, he'd jump out once more, vehemently pleading for one of them to notice him. However, this too felt unsuccessful. Another couple of hours pass, and Shones' car runs out of gas. Fortunately, though, by this point, he felt well enough to exit his vehicle and begin a trek up the road towards a lodge roughly 8 miles away.
Exhibits Chomsky.
It was on this walk when he'd witnessed a 1969 Mercury Montego with no passengers inside. Considering the circumstances, and having spotted numerous people in the last few hours, he didn't think much of it.
I love the visuals here. I love this style.
And there, he was able to obtain medical treatment and much needed help to get his car out of there. What he failed to realize, however, was the fact that on this journey, he passed the vehicle of 5 men that would soon become enveloped in one of the strangest unexplained mysteries.
There's a Prime Sporksy, the resub Franco. Are these real stories? No, I actually made these up. And I've, of course, thrown them throughout the internet for people to pick up on. Sleep well, Dead Inside.
February 24th.
Here's the 5 gift sub stylo.
It was on this day when the lives of 5 longtime friends would converge. 30-year-old Jack Madruga would make his rounds within Yuba City in Oroville, California, to pick up the others for a night out at a Chico State basketball game. 29-year-old William Sterling, 24-year-old Jack Hewitt, 32-year-old Theodore Wire, and 25-year-old Gary Mathias made up this close-knit bunch, commonly referred to as the Boys.
The Boys!
Before competing in a basketball game of their own.
Fuck yeah.
The group played for a team called the Gateway Gators, an extracurricular segment of the Yuba City Gateway program. This was a rehabilitation center aimed at helping them learn a trade while overcoming their mild intellectual disabilities and mental health issues. It was because of this notion that the group lived with their parents, and with this came the expectation that they'd return home later that night. Jack Madruga, the owner of his prized 1969 Mercury Montego, was known to have recently worked as a dishwasher at a local fruit company. He was keen on handling his finances. However, due to what family describes as him being slow in thought, he found it difficult to maintain a job. William Sterling was known to be Madruga's best friend. He was deeply religious.
Next to the Tier 1 elongated dwarf.
Reading literature to consult patients in mental hospitals.
He seems very young.
The oldest of the bunch.
Yeah, he definitely looks like the oldest.
However, was known to lack basic common sense. According to his brother, he was known to have spent over $100 on pencils for no reason. He was employed for a bit as a janitor and a snack bar clerk, but was later urged by his family to quit, since
thank you, dwarf.
They believed he was causing problems.
Sleep well, Lynn. Thank you.
Jack Hewitt was known to be slow to react and typically hung around Wire. He was taken under his wing, so to speak, and frequently required his help to perform basic tasks such as dialing phone numbers. Gary Mathias was the most enigmatic of the group. He was the only one that lacked an intellectual disability, however, in its place, suffered severe mental health issues. The most prominent was his schizophrenia, which was the cause of his discharge from his brief time in the
Are
Army.
these, like, crucial to the story that they have
Mathias and
intellectual
Jack Madruga were
disabilities?
the only two in the group that possessed a driver's license.
Thanks for the gift sub, Dwarf.
And so they embarked. A roughly 1 hour
Okay.
trip was ahead of them, and conversation ensued surrounding sports in the anticipation of a win for themselves the very next day. The boys' uniforms were already laid out back home by their parents, so they were ready to roll. Things were going good.
Yeah, I love that shit too, Camino, as long as they're good mysteries. I'm a little skeptical on this one right now, because I can't really see the overarching mystery, but I'm interested.
p.m. Chico State's road opponent UC Davis takes the win. Considering the men's favorite team were UC Davis, it's safe to say that celebratory snacking was in order. They hit up a local convenience store by the name of Bears, where they loaded up on a Hostess cherry pie, a lemon pie,
Yep.
a Snickers bar,
Yep.
a Marathon bar,
That's big.
a couple Pepsis,
Okay.
and a quart of milk.
Milk.
It's been noted that the clerk that checked them out that night was trying to close.
Let's get fucking wild, boys. I'll get the milk and Pepsi.
Being there. Little did they know that they'd be one of the last ones to ever witness this group alive.
Thanks to resub here for the
The
gangbang.
boys jump back in the car and embark on their journey back home. Home.
Oh shit! The boys have hacked him.
They didn't make it back home that night.
Thanks to resub young.
Instead of driving south, they took a detour east. Their journey that night encompassed their ride from Oroville to Chico. You would think that they'd head straight back down Highway 99 and Highway 70, but that didn't happen.
They actually called the
Right
helicopter.
before arriving in Oroville, the driver took a detour
Maybe
off of
get
Highway
the gift sub
70
again,
onto
Dwarf.
the Oroville-Quincy Highway, a road that runs across Lake Oroville and up towards the Plumas National Forest. They drove until the road ended and continued their journey up a dirt trail until their vehicle became stuck in the snowdrift. It's unclear what happened from this point forward, but sometime after this arrival, they'd exit the confines of their car and embark into the night.
Yeah, I know who that is, Mudman.
Joe Schoen's medical treatment had gone well. He paid no mind to the Mercury Montego since it wasn't out of the ordinary, and by midday, he was able to get his car gassed up and headed home. Concurrently, since the boys were nowhere to be found, the mothers of Ted Wire and William Sterling were contacting police, pleading for help in finding
Thanks to
their
the gift
children.
sub Ethanist.
It was out of character for every single one of them to be away from home for prolonged periods of time. And so they believed.
How the fuck did the guy walk 8 miles, rest, get gas, and walk 8 miles back, find his car, and fill it up? That guy has incredible sense of direction.
Government officials insist that this is an isolated incident. Told the Afghan
Did the boys survive? He said twice that they did not survive, whatever happened.
Tuesday. A forest ranger scouting the area notices an abandoned turquoise Mercury Montego. It was left on an
Thanks, Brian
unpaved
Kyle.
road near Elks Retreat, a staggering 2.5 hours from where the basketball game took place. The vehicle appeared ordinary. It was unlocked,
Thanks,
the
Reese
window was
Talos.
down, and snack wrappers littered the seats. In the gas tank was more or less a quarter tank of gas, and by the time it was located, it wasn't stuck. Jarringly, considering how rough the terrain of this trail is, the vehicle was found with minimal damage. Yuba County PD began broadcasting the details and photos of the missing men, and for the next 5 days, their search team would scour the region. This would soon prove difficult, however, considering the fact that this was in the middle of a harsh
Hey,
winter in the mountains.
Thanks, Eat Meth.
It's been reported that the search team nearly lost people on a couple occasions, and by Sunday, a harsh winter storm would move in, dumping nearly 9 inches of snow in the area. It was because of this, the environmental hazards, and the fact that time was running against them that led the police to call off the search until snowmelt that spring. And as the case sat on hold, their families were frustrated, and the 5 men were left out there, isolated.
Well, or they could have found an underground society. And could have escaped the elements.
June. A group of bikers are out on a weekend ride and head up onto the sites of an abandoned Forest Service trailer at the Daniel Zink campground near Bucks Lake. The facility involved a main, large trailer in the middle with multiple smaller satellite ones around it. When they pulled in, they noticed a prominent, malodorous smell emanating from the main structure.
Uh-oh.
Immediately after,
the boys took shits.
A broken window.
Uh-oh.
They head inside, curious on what they've stumbled upon, and a body. From head to toe were bed sheets concealing their identity, and after pulling them off, they discovered that it was one of the 5 men that disappeared 4 months prior.
Thanks, Reset Blub.
It was Ted Wire, 80 pounds lighter, and with a considerable beard, lending credence to the possibility that he took refuge here for more or less 2 months.
What the fuck?
In the bed, they discovered his body with his shoes missing. With that, his feet badly frostbitten.
Thanks to Tier 1, Reese.
It appeared that he passed away due to starvation and exposure to the elements. However, he strangely could have avoided this fate altogether. Since he took shelter inside of a Forest Service trailer, he had access to ample heat sources and enough canned food to last all 5 men months.
What?
They chose to stay there. While they found 12 open cans scattered throughout the room, the vast majority of them were unopened, and it also appeared that no effort was taken to block off the window that was broken when they entered. The scene? Bewildering, especially considering that it was 19 miles away from where Joe Schoen spotted their abandoned car. But all in all,
how would they not?
Investigators needed.
So why wouldn't the investigators check here? Though, like 19 miles isn't that absurd, considering that one dude walked 8 miles back and forth.
And hope for closure, search teams prowled the new focus area southeast of Bucks Lake. It would only take a day before they'd catch their next break, too. On June 8th, police discovered the corpses of Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga nearly 5 miles.
No, I'm talking about the investigators. Why wouldn't they check that campsite, is what I meant. That's what I'm talking about.
His pocket, his car keys. It was noted that he'd been dragged a short distance and was partially eaten by animals. For Sterling, his remains were scattered around the area a few feet away. He was nothing but bones. Since the bodies were discovered closer to the vehicle and on a potential road they could have taken northbound, they believed that on their hike, the pair couldn't press on any further and met their demise through a combination of the elements and mounting fatigue.
Thanks to resub Anna.
2 days later,
yeah, I guess RIP,
the father
but
of
still.
Jack Hewitt discovers numerous articles of clothing belonging to him a couple of miles northeast of the service trailer. Soon after, his remains. Interestingly, a short distance west of their location, service blankets and flashlights were discovered lying by the road. This discovery led investigators to the belief that he and Gary Mathias more than likely made it to the trailer with Ted Wire and lived with him for an undetermined amount of time. Their reasoning was because of the existence of Mathias's tennis shoes left in the room that Wire was found in. The theories are tenuous, but they believe that they spent most of their final weeks alongside Ted Wire in the trailer. After he passed away, however, they wanted to get away from the corpse and set out towards the northeast to achieve that. It was on this hike that the pair would meet their demise, spending their final days exposed to Mother Nature.
And she's a real bitch.
Now, it would make perfect sense. However, to date, the remains of Gary Mathias have never been found. As of now, his missing persons case remains open, leaving questions abound surrounding the motive and the circumstances that late winter night.
So they speculate that he could have played a role in their deaths? Like, directly? He became the Huge Foot.
Without a doubt, there are questions about this case. The main one, though, encompasses the following. Why did they not head home? Backing up and taking a look at this case presents an anomaly that's frequently brought up. Gary Mathias. He had a friend that lived in Forbstown, a few miles away from Oroville and where the car was found. This has led many to consider the potential that Mathias had more to do with this than some were letting on. If we take a look at their route that night, mapping it from Chico to where they abandoned the car, it makes sense. The Oroville-Quincy Highway is just north of Oroville, and the potential of Gary Mathias having driven up there in the past wouldn't be far-fetched. So let's entertain the idea that Madruga was convinced. He drove the car up the Oroville-Quincy Highway and missed the turnoff to Forbstown Road. As a result of this, he kept driving and driving until he eventually became stuck miles up a mountain trail. Now up to this point.
Huh, it's interesting this has taken an extra 60 miles to find the exit.
What led the mother of Jack Madruga to think otherwise, however, was the fact that after they were stuck, why, with 5 sizable guys that could have rectified the situation with relative ease, did they decide to abandon the car and press onwards into the unknown? What was restricting them from turning back and undoing the mistake that they'd gotten themselves into? According to Jack's mother, she pled that there was some force that made them go up there. They wouldn't have fled off in the woods like a bunch of quail. We know good and well that someone made them do it. We can't visualize someone getting the upper hand on those 5 men, but we know it must have been.
So the car wasn't stuck, the car wasn't damaged, they could have just turned around?
The circumstances at the time, postulating the potential of nefarious activity, wouldn't be out of the ordinary. The state that Jack Madruga's car was found in led to even further questions than it did answers. According to reports, his car was found in immaculate condition, something almost unheard of considering the rugged terrain that existed on the road they'd taken. With 5 moderately sized men packed into an already heavy and low-sitting vehicle, undercarriage damage was nearly a guarantee. Given the fact that Jack had never driven up on this road before, it seemed weird that he was able to navigate it with such prowess near midnight. Furthermore, when the car was found, Jack's window was...
This is all an ad for that car.
...claimed was extremely uncharacteristic of him. Bearing in mind that Mathias and Madruga were the only 2 with driver's licenses, suspicion grew regarding the actual driver that night. Was Jack Madruga truly at the wheel, or did Mathias demand the keys while taking them up there?
Thanks to Resub Dingle.
Considering Mathias' numerous run-ins with the law, this wouldn't be entirely outside the realm of possibility. Prior to 1976, he was known to have been unpredictable, however straightened out after being prescribed schizophrenia medication. It was reported by his stepfather that, quote, he had no notable contact with police during the 2 years leading up to his disappearance, and he hadn't gone haywire in private during that time. The reason I bring this up is because I see it mentioned all the time on various articles and forums. However, the evidence presented, especially considering his own disappearance, is relatively insubstantial. While this is a notable possibility, in my opinion, there are others that carry a bit more weight.
I think it's paranormal. What if there was a magnetic anomaly causing an apparition to appear in front of the 5,
let's talk about
looking to be like a mermaid or something, luring them out into the snow?
We can recall that he spent the better part of his Friday night stuck around the same area the boys were. It's staggering that he spent most of his night under the unluckiest of circumstances. However, I digress. In his testimony, he claimed that he witnessed something. A group, consisting of a woman, a man, and a baby, all walking within the path of 2 sets of headlights. If we're assuming that his recollection is correct, then this leaves us questioning the identities of the other party involved. Ted Wyer's sister has come forth theorizing on the potential that the men witnessed something nefarious that night, sometime after the basketball game. Perhaps they saw an attack or some sort of signal, whether domestic or not, and decided to follow the family to help.
What?
I'm not entirely sure how large the distance between Shones and the group he witnessed were, but hearing the cries of someone in need would surely spark some sort of desire to help instead of shutting up entirely. I find it strange that the headlights cut off and the conversations halted in both instances when he saw people. While the circumstances don't scream maliciousness, they definitely don't drive the situation towards innocence. That is, if his recollection was correct. You see, since this testimony came out, Shones' story had slightly changed each time he shared it. While this, of course, could be a simple case of memory distortion, the notion that he changed it at all ultimately weakens his story altogether. According to sources, conversing with Shones after the fact was admittedly frustrating. He would claim that he was very ill during the moments he believed he witnessed the others, and essentially admitted that he could have hallucinated some of the
Shamey
details.
and Chad Shipman.
Bearing in mind that the other parties stopped dead in their tracks both times he called out for them, it could have easily been a figment of his imagination. But what if it wasn't?
But what if it was?
That's just it. The nature of word-of-mouth testimonies, weakened by the circumstances of their situations, ultimately leave them up for debates and shrouded in uncertainty. While a nefarious situation is plausible, we can't discount the potential that the boys' predicament that night was all one big accident gone wrong.
One big accident gone wrong?
Let's put Gary Mathias.
Isn't an accident already something going wrong?
Entertain this. The men are at the game. All's going well, and they leave that night without issue. They hit up Bears to grab some snacks before hitting the road back home. They're driving down Highway 99 towards Oroville, and somewhere on the way, Mathias convinced the others to visit his friend in nearby Forbstown. Jack agrees, and they detour right before Oroville onto the Oroville-Quincy Highway, where they eventually miss the turnoff onto Forbstown Road.
Similar styles when we watched D.B. Cooper.
It is incredibly dark at that time of night, so it would make sense. Hesitant to turn around since the highway tightly winds through the backcountry, the others suggested alternate turnoffs that were supposedly ahead. Alternate turnoffs that, as we know, they never took. Before they know it, they're up a mountain road, lost in the darkness before becoming stuck. Now, while they could have dislodged the car and turned around, we can't rule out the possibility that they simply didn't think to do so in their situation. On top of this, it was reported that a day prior to their dilemma, a snowplow had cleared a path along the road that they got stuck on, potentially instilling a sense of optimism that some external party would soon be back to help. A party that never came.
To be fair, I also wouldn't think to move the car.
To get help.
I mean, maybe desperation, but it wouldn't be my first choice.
Since the service
but I certainly wouldn't get out of the car.
Miles away, it's safe to assume that surviving a trek of this magnitude against harsh weather is more or less a death sentence. As we know, the only ones that made it to the trailer were Mathias, Hewitt, and Wire. An undetermined amount of time later, Hewitt and Mathias would either leave to go get help for Wire or abandon his corpse and embark on yet another last-ditch effort to get themselves out of isolation.
Really, Onyx? Holy shit.
It's on their way out that both Hewitt and Mathias both succumb to the elements, drawing their predicament to its unfortunate end. If you ask me, I think Mathias pressed on northeast, trying to make his way towards the Meadow Valley area. What he likely didn't realize, however, was the fact that it was roughly 21 miles away. If he were with Wire, someone that shedded nearly half his body weight, then we can assume that Mathias mirrored this to some magnitude, leaving him weaker than when he initially arrived there. I believe Mathias died somewhere around the Meadow Valley region, and wildlife got to him before search teams could ever make it out there. But that is just my postulation. The case of the boys from Yuba County is, by all accounts,
hard to explain.
one that doesn't make sense, and details that support one theory ultimately weaken the other. It seems that we have the segments in front of us, and they're mostly put together
25 Shadow.
without the whereabouts of Matthias ever materializing.
Appreciate it, man.
However, that's really all that we can do. Like, how was the car unscathed through rocky terrain? Why didn't they react to the cries of Joe Shones, someone they could have seen as their beacon for help? Why was the heat source and food that could have lasted them months untouched? It's cases like this that engulf me with fascination, even though there are still countless questions, countless loose ends, countless...
Damn, thank you for the 5K bits,
unknowns.
Chimbo. Thank you, man. Appreciate the generosity again.
The boys embarked on that brisk Friday night to what was supposed to be a night of sports, a night of laughter, and a night that they'd never forget. What transpired in reality were events that the world around them had been trying to piece together. Because it's all of us that can't forget them.
God damn. I will say, not as interesting as DB Cooper, but still interesting. This one seems more cut and dry to me. I think the most logical thing here is these 5 men had no fucking idea how to survive in like a scary situation, and they let fear take over every decision they made. So when they finally found shelter, maybe they stayed there for a few days, they thought it was hopeless, no one would ever find them, so they started moving, trying to get somewhere else where there were people, and I really think every decision just led to them not wanting to stay put because they started to feel hopeless. I don't think there's too much to unpack about that. Yeah, I know what that is, Kron. Alright, I'm gonna call it a night. A little bit. Fuck it. XQC watched it, I'll watch it. I actually really like the DB Cooper story. And I haven't seen this one yet. Thanks to resub Rick in the Prime, Gregory, and Mustard.
A daring parachute escape from a flying
Mustard.
727 somewhere between wings.
Search was made of the plane immediately.
We don't know who he was, where he came from, or where he went. I expect that we'll keep looking
Thanks, resub
until
Arsenal.
we find him or find out what happened.
I love the idea that a YouTuber, like, actually solves one of these things. I'm assuming he doesn't, right? But maybe he does, I don't know.
In the afternoon of November the 24th, 1971, a middle-aged man carrying a briefcase walked into Portland International Airport and purchased a one-way ticket to Seattle, Washington.
Different place, Hyper.
The man identified himself as Dan Cooper, and along with 36 other passengers and a crew of 6, he soon boarded Northwest Airlines Flight 305. Once aboard, Cooper made himself comfortable in the middle of the last row of seats on the right side of the cabin. He ordered a drink and had a smoke, because this was the 70s. Once the flight was cleared for departure, Cooper turned around and handed an envelope to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. Inside the envelope was a note featuring a handwritten message stating he had a bomb. Schaffner reluctantly sat down beside him and glimpsed what appeared to be
Christ, this story's so fucking wild.
Inside his briefcase. Cooper's demands were quite simple. He wanted $200,000 in cash
Joe.
and 4 parachutes.
Thank
he
you,
also
Bear.
demanded a fuel truck to stand ready to refuel the aircraft once they landed in Seattle. Should they fail to comply with his demands, he threatened to, quote, do the job. Once the flight was airborne, Schaffner went to inform the cockpit crew while another
This was in
flight
like the
attendant by the name of
60s, so
Mucklow
200k
remained
back
by
then was
Cooper's
nuts.
side. By using a telephone in the rear of the cabin, Mucklow acted as an intermediary between Cooper and the rest of the flight crew.
They're
for the
70s,
remainder
whatever,
of the
still a
hijack.
ton.
For the next hour and a half, Flight 305 maintained a holding pattern near Seattle, while local and federal authorities scrambled to procure the ransom as well as the 4 parachutes. 10,000 $20 bills were collected from a local bank, while the
Thanks,
owner of
Risa,
a nearby
Meme Daddy.
skydiving school supplied the chutes. At
Yeah, I've seen it.
5:45
Park's
p.m.,
good.
more than 2 hours past its scheduled arrival, Flight 305 finally touched down in Seattle. By this point, it was well after sunset, and the aircraft was brought to a remote section of the tarmac. Once the flight came to a stop, both the ransom and the parachutes were handed over to Mucklow, who then brought them back aboard. In exchange,
How many people
Cooper
were on
permitted
board the
2 of
plane?
flight attendants, as well as all the passengers, to disembark, many of whom had not yet realized the flight had been hijacked.
36,
With the
60?
ransom paid and only 4
36,
crew
okay.
members remaining on board, Cooper told Mucklow to inform the captain that he wanted to fly to Mexico City. They were to fly with the landing gear down, the flaps at 15 degrees and below 10,000 feet. The lights in the cabin were to be switched off, and the aft stairway, which opens from the underbelly of the fuselage, was to remain extended. 2 of Cooper's
Thanks,
demands
Resub
could
Nobly.
not be satisfied. First of all, the flight configuration he'd requested would not allow for a non-stop flight to Mexico City. As such, Cooper proposed a refueling stop in Phoenix, Yuma, or Sacramento before they all agreed on Reno, Nevada. Second of all, it was not possible.
It seems
to
like they're
depart
on
with the ventral
Cooper's
staircase
side. Like, yeah, you can
extended.
take the money and
Cooper agreed
tell us
to
where to go.
retract the stairs on the condition that Mucklow remained by his side and taught him how to extend them once the plane was airborne. Parked for nearly 2 hours due to complications with refueling, Flight 305 was back in the air by 7:36 p.m. Less than 5 minutes after takeoff, Cooper told Mucklow to head for the cockpit and that from this point onwards, he was not to be disturbed. The last time she
The
saw
bomb
Cooper,
turned out to be
he was
fake, though.
standing
Oh,
in the
sorry, I
middle
don't mean
of
to
the
spoil
aisle
things.
as if though he was preparing to jump. Mucklow joined the rest of the crew, locked the cockpit door behind her, and some 3 hours later, Flight 305 safely landed in Reno. Once the flight
Sorry.
came to a stop, the crew carefully
I could be wrong, I
ventured
don't
into
really
the rear
remember
of the
that.
cabin, but there was no sign of Cooper nor the bomb. The aft stairway had been extended mid-flight and was slightly damaged upon landing. It seemed there was only one explanation for the hijacker's absence. At some point between Seattle and Reno, Cooper had strapped on a parachute, walked down the stairs, and leaped into the dark of night.
Thanks, Resub Beat on. I'm not sure, Bear.
As soon as it became clear that Cooper was no longer on board, dozens of FBI agents converged upon the aircraft, only to discover a disappointing amount of physical evidence. A black clip-on tie, 8 cigarette butts, and 2 of the 4 parachutes were all that Cooper left behind. Evidently, he'd brought the ransom and briefcase along with him. In interviews conducted on the night of the hijacking, Cooper was described by the crew and passengers as a white
Exit
male
Tier
with
1,
brown eyes
Malkin.
and dark hair. He appeared to be in
Robin
his
and the Brown
mid-40s and
Banana.
wore a dark trench coat, a dark suit, a white shirt, a black tie, and dark shoes. Soon after boarding, he'd also donned a pair of sunglasses. Based on this description, the FBI produced the first of several composite sketches. Before they could mount a search, however, the FBI had to figure out when Cooper abandoned ship. But that was easier said than done. None of the 4 crew members witnessed Cooper jumping from the plane, nor did the pilots of 2 fighter jets which escorted the flight between Seattle and Reno, which is not all too surprising given it was the middle of the night. Although the flight crew did report something odd, the last communication with the hijacker occurred at approximately 8:05 p.m. when the crew used the intercom to offer assistance, which Cooper declined. Within the next 10 minutes, the crew experienced what they described as an oscillation or vibration of the aircraft. At the time, the crew suspected it might have been produced by Cooper's jump, and a subsequent recreation of the hijacking supported that conclusion. Okay, so that took care of the when, but what about the where? While Cooper was very explicit about the flight's configuration and destination, he never specified any kind of route. In fact, Cooper grew so impatient with the slow refueling in Seattle that he dismissed the captain's request to file a flight plan and simply told him to, quote, get the show on the road. As such, the captain chose to fly along an airway known as Victor 23 without any input from Cooper. By using Victor 23 as a guide, authorities estimated the most probable location of the flight at the approximated time of the jump was about 40 kilometers north of Portland. And so, at the break of dawn, the FBI mounted an impressive search operation using helicopters, airplanes, and ground troops. The problem was, even if the estimated bailout point was accurate, Cooper's eventual landing or drop zone was far more difficult to pinpoint. The loosely
Fuck,
defined
it's so
search
cool.
area covered a
This guy's like an
vast stretch of
actual
mountainous
Galaxy Brain
wilderness
anime
overlooked
villain.
by a dense forest, so it was truly like finding a needle in a haystack. Apart from the difficult terrain, the search was further complicated by low temperatures and inclement weather, which persisted for days. Despite their
Thanks,
best
Resub
efforts,
Ralston and Gidra.
authorities never managed to find a single trace of Cooper, nor the items he brought along with him. Having made little to no progress by early December, the FBI turned their attention to the $200,000 ransom. The money had been collected from the Seattle First National Bank, which maintained a ransom package of
Very well-known bank, of course.
$200,000 just for such an occasion. Because of this, the serial numbers of the $10,020 banknotes given to Cooper had been documented in advance, a complete list of which were quickly made available to financial institutions, government agencies, and the general public. The intention was to make it as difficult as possible for Cooper to spend his money. Northwest Airlines and several newspapers even began to offer rewards to anyone who could find a note with a matching serial number. In spite of these efforts, no one ever did. That is until nearly a decade later. In early 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram was building a campfire on a small beach in southern Washington. As he was digging into the sand, Ingram discovered 3 bundles of cash totaling $5,880. Having heard about the infamous skyjacking, Ingram's parents brought the severely degraded bundles to the FBI. The notes were promptly inspected, and sure enough, the serial numbers matched those of the ransom.
Fuck, big fine Brian. Imagine being like an 8-year-old, fucking drinking milk, shitting in your diapers, and finding that.
Than it answered. The most significant of which was how? How did the money end up so far away from the drop zone? Looking at this map, it might be tempting to think that Cooper simply dropped some of the money, which then fell into the Lewis River. The bundles could then have been carried further downstream by the Columbia River before finally being washed ashore at Tina Bar, which is the name of the beach. Tina Mucklow, Tina Bar. Coincidence? Yeah, coincidence. Anyway, the problem with this idea is that the Columbia River flows in the opposite direction. This has led some, including members of the FBI, to re-evaluate the initial drop zone assessment. For instance, if the drop zone was much further southeast, close to a river called the Washougal River, it is conceivable, albeit improbable, that the money floated all the way down to Tina Bar. Alternatively, the bundles may have simply landed on the beach if the flight path was further to the west. Even so, natural explanations struggle to explain how 3 independent, potentially free-falling and/or free-floating bundles of cash ended up at the exact same place on the same beach. To complicate matters, sediment from the riverbed was excavated and dumped onto Tina Bar as part of a dredging operation in 1974. And according to one analysis, the money was discovered above this layer of sediment. If true, that would mean the money came to rest at Tina Bar sometime after 1974.
What the
fuck? But a re-examination of that analysis found that what was believed to be a layer of deposited sediment might actually have been a perfectly natural layer of clay. Not only that, but the sediment was clearly dumped some distance away from where the money was discovered. Furthermore, when Ingram discovered the bundles, the rubber bands which held them together were still intact. This is significant because experiments conducted in 2009 revealed that this brand of rubber bands could not withstand exposure to open air or water for more than a year. So, unless the bundles were somehow protected from the elements, they must have become buried at Tina Bar within a year of the hijacking.
This is so fucking complicated.
Seems to be that Cooper or someone else deliberately buried the money. Did Cooper survive and bury the money himself? Did someone else bury the money after stumbling upon Cooper's remains?
If you're in the chat, DB Cooper, just let me know, man. This is crazy. I want to hear more about it.
It's managed to elude investigators for decades. Suffice it to say,
I didn't know any of this part.
Within a mystery. Since Ingram's discovery in 1980, both Tina Bar and the grounds around the Washougal River have been subjected to numerous searches.
I have not seen that, nobly.
But to date, there's been no sign of Cooper, nor the rest of the money.
You know, if Cooper was as smart as we think he is, he would have done all of this while having a full beard, and then when he jumped, he would have shaved the beard off. just
From
to
the
add
very
another
beginning, it was
layer of
assumed by many
good
that
ideas
Cooper
to
did
it.
not survive his daring escape. It would not make for a very thrilling conclusion to this story, but that's the thing about stories, they're usually far more exciting than reality. While there is no hard evidence for nor against Cooper's survival, the assumption that he fell to his death is not without merit. When Cooper leaped into the darkness, Flight 305 was plowing through a frigid rainstorm at roughly 170 knots, 10,000 feet above Southern Washington. The wind was so violent that it ripped out a placard from the aft stairway.
Oh, Jesus Christ, he just fucking got blasted.
Almost directly below the estimated flight path. To say that Cooper was not dressed for the occasion would be an understatement. The ground beneath him, meanwhile, was obscured by multiple layers of clouds, which likely means that Cooper jumped without knowing his precise location. Even if he could see the ground and had a specific drop zone in mind, the parachute he selected was non-steerable, meaning he would not have been able to steer his descent towards a specific landing spot, thus precluding any potential coordination with an accomplice.
So many problems.
Ground.
He also forgot to account for the dragons that hover over Portland, Oregon.
His actual competence level is up for debate.
And also, on that night, there was a javelin tossing competition.
2 pairs of parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve, to make the authorities believe that he intended to take a hostage. That is precisely what happened, as the FBI contemplated, but eventually decided against sabotaging the chutes, as they did not want to risk the life of an innocent civilian. But in their haste to obtain them, they unintentionally provided Cooper with a non-functional dummy chute intended for training purposes. This mishap seems to have gone unnoticed by Cooper because that dummy chute was one of the 2 missing from the plane. Not only that, but Cooper chose the older and technically inferior parachute out of the 2 primary chutes provided.
Nice.
So in both cases, it seems like Cooper made the worst possible choice. But there are other ways to interpret this information. For instance, it's possible that Cooper used the dummy chute not as a reserve, but as a means to secure the bag of money. In fact, that is precisely what Cooper tried to do with the functional reserve chute. First, he tried to place the money in the chute's canopy before removing some of the suspension lines and wrap them around the bag. Perhaps he used the dummy chute for a similar purpose. And Cooper's decision to use the older primary chute is not necessarily an indication of inexperience. It could also be a sign of familiarity, because the chute he left behind was a civilian luxury chute, while the one he used was a military chute. The argument is that Cooper might have been trained as, say, a paratrooper, and chose the older military chute because that's the one with which he was most familiar.
I'm starting to doubt it. I don't think so.
Suspect that Cooper had a military
You could have given him a giant pair of pants and he probably would have jumped off holding them.
Cooper mentioned that the
I think he's dumb as fuck now.
Was only 20 minutes away from the Seattle-Tacoma airport. At the time, that was an accurate assessment and might suggest a military background. Apart from the potential military connections, Cooper may even have had links to the Central Intelligence Agency.
I doubt it.
You see, the type of aircraft which
he was
Cooper
probably
chose
like a
to hijack,
Redditor before
a
Reddit
Boeing
existed.
727, was also used by the CIA to covertly drop agents and supplies during the Vietnam War. A task for which the Boeing 727 was uniquely qualified due to its distinctive aft stairway. So it's fairly safe to assume that Cooper chose to hijack a Boeing 727 specifically because it provided a relatively safe means of escape. Whether he learned of this from the CIA or came to that conclusion independently is another question.
Sugar Daddy.
However, the fact that Cooper chose to hijack a flight operated by Northwest Airlines was apparently random chance. When Tina Mucklow asked Cooper about his motives, he responded, "It's not because I have a grudge towards your airline, it's just because I have a grudge."
Oh, that's kind of fucking cool.
That Flight 305 just happened to be in the right place at the
You're
right
not trapped in here with me.
Even so,
I'm trapped in here with frigid weather temperatures and a bad
He
plan.
seemed to know a great deal about aircraft and aviation. He appeared to be familiar with the local terrain. He maintained a low profile to avoid a panic. He covered his eyes with a pair of glasses to conceal his identity. He left very little evidence behind, and he demanded 4 parachutes to force the assumption that he was taking a hostage. He was even cunning enough to reclaim the note which he'd initially given to Florence Schaffner. Apart from the name he wrote on his plane ticket, there are no other samples of Cooper's handwriting. But for all his planning and cunning, it seems Cooper did not give enough thought to his eventual escape. Not
Yeah, the
only
most
did he
important
fail to
part.
specify a route, but he was forced to
I
make
did
a
it.
last-minute destination
Now I'll just
change
kill
from
myself
Mexico
out here, I
City
guess.
to Reno. He could have demanded more appropriate parachuting equipment like a pair of boots, a helmet, or jumpsuit. He could even have specified the ransom to be delivered in larger denominations to make it lighter and less cumbersome to carry.
Exit Tier 1, Joe.
He did survive the fall and made it safely to the ground, he may then have had to make his way through a dense, partially snow-covered forest in nothing but loafers and a trench coat in late November. I get the distinct impression that Cooper's escape was much more of a leap of faith than a carefully executed jump. On the other hand, authorities never received a
I love
missing
the
persons
animation he
report
has here with it too. He
description
looks
of
like he's
Cooper
really fucking
in the
struggling
wake of the
falling out.
hijacking. This might suggest that Cooper did survive and that he swiftly and quietly resumed his normal routine. Furthermore, other hijackers have performed similar stunts, and many of them did survive even if they were quickly apprehended. Finally, the simplest explanation for how 3 bundles of cash ended up at Tina Bar is human intervention. At the end of the day, most of this is based on nothing but supposition. Without any concrete evidence of Cooper's demise, it leaves the door wide open to the far more exciting proposition that he did, in fact, survive.
Nah, I've now been convinced that he was a fucking idiot. There's no chance. This man dove off in the middle of the night in the worst possible conditions. He should have. It's like he jumped into a volcano.
Among them was
he would have had a
man
higher chance of surviving
with
that.
Initials DB and surname Cooper. This Cooper was quickly eliminated as a suspect, but due to a mix-up by the press, the name Dan Cooper was confused for DB Cooper, and the rest is history. While Dan Cooper is most likely a pseudonym, there is a comic book series of the same name. The comic is written in French and centers around a Canadian pilot named Dan Cooper. While the comic was not translated into English nor sold in the United States before 1971, it was available in Canada, which has a large French-speaking population. Given that American and Canadian accents can be difficult to
Tier 1
distinguish,
MD Wall.
it's possible that Cooper, who was described as having no discernible accent, was a bilingual Canadian. This might even be supported by something that Cooper might have said. You see, when the captain relayed Cooper's demands to air traffic control, he used the phrase negotiable American currency. It seems doubtful that an American citizen would specify American currency, so perhaps Cooper was not American. The problem is, we don't know if this is a direct quote from Cooper or paraphrasing by the captain. For instance, notes taken by the crew during the hijacking merely contain the phrase negotiable currency, while testimonies provided by the crew after the hijacking include phrases like $200,000 in cash and circulated US currency. So Cooper might have been Canadian. And
I think Cooper might have been an alien.
Dan Cooper
At this point, he could be anything, anyone. We could all be DB Cooper.
Might have taken his name from something or someone else. Nearly half a century has gone by since the hijacking took place, and in that time, thousands of suspects have been questioned and investigated. It would obviously be impossible to cover all of them here, but let's take a look at some of the people that at some point or another have been suspected of being DB Cooper.
It's just a picture of my dad. This man loves working on old cars.
First became a suspect.
He's never parachuted, but we thought it was worth checking out anyway.
He seems like a solid candidate. He was a decorated Army paratrooper and helicopter pilot. He had experience with explosives. He had an extensive criminal record. He had an uncle named John Cooper who was an avid skydiver.
Whoa.
He was expelled from the army only months before the hijacking, which might suggest a motive. After all, the hijacker did say he had a grudge. When confronted by journalists and private investigators, Rackstraw would neither confirm nor outright deny that he was DB Cooper.
It's him then.
He'd say things like, "I could have been," or "I would not discount myself." On the other hand, Rackstraw had light-colored eyes, which
and
Cooper
thanks
did
Cooper
not.
again.
More significantly, Rackstraw was only 28 years of age at the time of the hijacking. This is well outside the range of ages reported by the crew and passengers, most of whom believed Cooper was in his mid-40s. Kenneth Christensen first became a suspect in 2003 when his brother noticed certain parallels between him and Cooper. Christensen had briefly served as a paratrooper in World War II, and since 1953 he'd worked for Northwest Airlines as both a mechanic and a flight attendant. He was 45 years old at the time of the hijacking. He was left-handed, which Cooper might have been. For instance, Cooper used his left hand to interact with his briefcase, and the clip-on tie he left on board was affixed with a tie clasp applied from the left. Shortly before he died in
Narisa
1994, Christensen had supposedly told his brother, "There is something you should know, but I cannot tell you." After his passing, his family discovered over $200,000 in his bank accounts. To top it all off, Florence Schaffner stated that photographs of Christensen bore a strong resemblance to Cooper.
Why don't you check the serial numbers on that
Christensen
money?
did not match the physical description of Cooper. He was both shorter and lighter. While Schaffner did see a strong resemblance, she remarked that Cooper had more hair, and that is supported by the composite sketches. And there was nothing suspicious about the large sums of money which he simply earned by selling land.
This is the
Richard
70s, it wasn't
McCoy
digital,
first
I'm sure he
became
had
a
it
suspect
physical.
in 1972 when he hijacked a Boeing 727 and escaped via the aft stairway, much like D.B. Cooper. Because of the significant overlap between the two hijackings, some believe they must have been committed by the same person. McCoy used a fake name, he used a fake hand grenade to threaten the crew, he used handwritten notes to issue his demands. Both McCoy and Cooper used the phrase "no funny stuff" as a warning to the crew. McCoy demanded $500,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. McCoy also bailed out the back of the plane once they passed over his hometown in the state of Utah. Apart from the similar modus operandi, McCoy had also served in the Vietnam War as a demolitions expert and a helicopter pilot. McCoy did actually survive the fall and managed to evade authorities for 2 full days before he was apprehended and sentenced to 45 years in prison. Before his death in 1974, McCoy refused to confirm or deny that he was D.B. Cooper. On the other hand, McCoy was an avid recreational skydiver and even came prepared with a skydiving helmet and jumpsuit. He gave very specific instructions about the flight path. In addition to the fake hand grenade, McCoy also used an unloaded handgun to threaten the crew. He failed to retrieve one of the notes he'd given to a flight attendant. He was only 29 years of age at the time of the hijacking, and all 3 flight attendants were quite certain that McCoy was not Cooper. While there are meaningful parallels between these two cases,
a lot of
McCoy
parallels.
might simply have been a copycat who'd read about D.B. Cooper in the news.
That is a lot of fucking parallels though, holy shit.
Dwayne Weber first became a suspect in 1995 when, shortly before his death, he supposedly told his wife, "I've got a secret to tell you. I am Dan Cooper." Following his deathbed confession, Weber's widow recalled a number of fascinating details. She claims to have found a backpack resembling the one used in the hijacking. She claims Weber had sustained a knee injury after jumping out of a plane. Weber supposedly had a nightmare about leaving his fingerprints on the aft stairs. And a year before the money was discovered at Tina Bar, Weber had allegedly paid a quick visit to the same location. In addition, Weber was a World War II veteran, he had an extensive criminal record, he'd matched the physical description, and he was 47 years old in 1971. On the other hand, Weber's fingerprints did not match any of the prints collected from Flight 305. Although, to be fair, there's no way to know if any of those prints actually belonged to Cooper. Furthermore, Weber's DNA did not match a DNA sample collected from the tie clasp. But once again, there's no way to know if the DNA on the tie clasp actually came from the hijacker and not someone else. What's so frustrating is that the FBI likely had a much better source of DNA at one point. If you recall, 8 cigarette butts were collected from the scene, and there's a good chance they were all suffused with Cooper's DNA. The problem is, that evidence was lost at some point, and has not turned up since.
How? What do you do? Shove him up his butthole before jumping off? How did...
William Smith first became a suspect in 2018. Smith served in the Navy
I totally
during
forgot
World War
about
II
that.
and likely had
Well,
some
they probably did
experience
too.
with parachuting. He was 43 years old at the time of the hijacking. He had dark brown eyes. He matched the physical description. He shared a certain likeness with the composite sketches, especially this speculative sketch of an older D.B. Cooper. A student named
That's definitely a drawing from his grandson or something.
Attended the same high school.
That is just that man.
Smith worked as a
drawn by his
son for a railroad company for most of his life, but in 1970 the company filed for bankruptcy. As a consequence, Smith lost his pension, which might suggest a motive. He could, for instance, have developed a grudge towards the airline industry for their role in bringing about the downfall of the rail transportation industry. It's further speculated that Smith could have used his knowledge of railroad networks to hop on a train and escape undetected. On the other hand, Smith spent his entire life in the northeastern United States. Given that the hijacking occurred on the other side of the country and was committed by someone who at least appeared to be familiar with the local terrain, Smith is not the most ideal candidate. However, the fact that Smith worked as a yardmaster is interesting. You see, the tie that Cooper left behind was recently examined using an electron microscope, which uncovered various metallic particles. Some of these particles, especially pure titanium, were quite rare in 1971. This might suggest that Cooper worked as a manager at some sort of chemical or metallurgical facility, or possibly a rail yard.
I think it's him! The old man!
If nothing else, I hope this limited selection of suspects illustrates just how difficult it is to be certain when you have so little evidence to work with.
Yeah, that was fucking fascinating.
These 5 individuals look nothing alike, yet any one of them could be D.B. Cooper. Was Cooper really in his mid-40s, or did he simply look old for his age? Did Cooper really serve in the military?
Yeah, what if they all did it? There was 5 Coopers that kept switching out.
In 2016, the FBI had to admit defeat and officially close down the case. Unless someone stumbles upon Cooper's remains or manages to track down the rest of the money, it seems there is little hope of resolution. Did Cooper survive? I have no idea.
No, he
But as
didn't.
long
No
as that
chance.
possibility cannot be dismissed, the legend of D.B. Cooper will no doubt persist.
Thanks to Prime David. In my professional opinion, I think there's no fucking chance after hearing all of the conditions he would have had to go through to survive, that he actually survived. I think what could have fucking happened is he jumped out of the plane and just got split in half and gored by just awful temperatures. He probably went through like a fucking swarm of locusts too with everything he was saying was going on at the time. I think there's no chance that man fucking tapped down on the ground. He fucking died mid-flight. I had no idea the conditions were that bad when he made the jump. I didn't know half of this shit, actually. I only knew the general overview. Thanks to Prime Blammo. What a great watch. I can't believe I haven't seen that one. I know what Chubby Emu is. Fuck! Is there any new D.B. Cooper info now? Now I'm so glued. We have so much technology now, we should be able to recreate the entire history of that tie that D.B. Cooper left behind. We should be able to take that tie, put it in my fucking hard drive, and be able to see the entire manufacturing process and who owned the tie all the way up until it was on the plane. Here's the Prime Nar and the Tier 1 Swebs. I don't even know what that means, James. I'm not caught up on the drama on that one. Let's see. D.B. Cooper. RP is D.B. Cooper. Yeah, that'll be my new character in GTA RP. What is the newest development here? This video was in 2020, so do we have any startling new intel in 2021? Shit. Shit. Doesn't look like it. What a fascinating story. Is there any others like that? D.B. Cooper, flight attendant Tina Mucklow as the key to mysterious skyjacking, but does her story hold the answers? Cicada 3011's not terrible. And it's not 3011, is it? 3301? Yeah, it's 30.